Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Community Infrastructure Service Committee for Monday, March 6, 2017, Part 1. And dealing in Part 1, we'll have consent items. Do we have a mover for the consent items? Councillor Fernandez, we do have a couple questions. Are they for consent items, Councillor Gazzola? Okay. We have a... Does anyone want to... Which do you have in particular items, Councillor?
Is on items 1 and
items
3.
1? Count 1 and 3?
Yes.
Councillor Fernandez, do you have 1? Okay, so we'll move out items 1 and 3. All those in favor? Can I see that again, please? All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Councillor Gazzola, go ahead.
Yeah, no, very simple question on item 1. It's pretty straightforward, but there's an additional lengthy report. Is that telling us anything different, that big, the big long report at the end of our material?
Through the chair, no, the intention of the executive summary in the report was to tell you what all of the information attached was telling you.
And you said you're batting 100%, so, right?
Through the chair, it's a really good news item this year.
So, okay, so the back big long report just has a lot of detail. It's hard.
Through the chair, if you'd like to speak with our resident expert, Ms. Mick is here.
No, I'm not questioning it. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't missing anything with the. There were 2 reports on it. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Marsh, is this on item 1 too?
It's on item 2.
Item 2? Okay. Your item 1, Councillor Fernandez? Okay.
Thank you. So just as I was looking at the adverse water quality incidents, I noticed that 2 in my ward had occurred, and both of them, no, sorry, one was in the summer and one was in December. Am I looking correct? Yes. I would think that when it's something to do with chloroform, that it would be related maybe to summer works that's happening. Can you help me understand what happened here? They're in close proximity to each other. One is on Aden Cliff, and the other one was on Forest Creek.
Through the chair, the Aden Cliff one was a precautionary BWA. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
So what happened, a contractor was working on a sanitary service, and they hit the water service. So when that happens, there is the potential for contamination. So what we do then is we put on a precautionary boil water advisory for that home. And it ended up the results were good. But that's the incident with that, was because it was close to the sanitary service and there was potential for contamination.
Okay. And Forest Creek? It was also a chloroform, but it said it was present. E. coli and chloroform.
Correct. So when something like that happens, what we do immediately is we resample, and the resample was clear. So sometimes it's a sampling error, sometimes, it could be something on the sampling port, could be something on our hands. So that's why we resample immediately. And if it were to be positive, then we would take additional corrective actions.
So just maybe for public information and for my own knowledge as well, is when we have specific addresses that are happening with low chlorine or chloroform, is it often a contractor doing the work on the site that, in Aden Cliff that exposed the sanitary, or is it, why is it not like a whole street that's affected? Can you help us understand that?
Through the chair. So what we have in the system is we have our routine distribution sampling locations. So that's why there will be a specific address, like 19 Forest Creek. We actually have an auto sampler there. So we don't sample every site in the city. We have certain samples. So during a construction project, we would put up a temporary water main. Mm-hmm. So that's the blue water main that you see above the ground, and the water kind of heats up in that. So what we do, we're proactive in that we sample those water mains more frequently, every 2 weeks. So we do see more hits on that. In addition, the sampling ports are outside. They're in a construction area. There's debris. So we treat those as sort of a higher priority for us because there is the potential for the water to kind of heat up and perhaps go sideways. But in doing that, we do see more false positives, I would say that. So we do see a lot more, usually on the temporary water mains, we do see more incidents during construction, but it's not necessarily to do with the construction site, like the workers there. It's, the site in general. It's, dust and debris.
Yeah. And that's what I meant. Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Councillor Yaneski, are you for item 1? 3? Okay. We're going to go on to item number 2. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. I'm just wondering about whether or not we have assurances from Grand Link that the noise levels for the works they're asking to do during the nighttime will be, if they're going to do everything they can to mitigate the noisy work being done in the middle of the night.
Mr. Carmichael.
Yes, thank you. Through you, the Chair. Our discussions with Grand Link for this exemption for this year is in a continuation of the practices they've used in the past couple of years that we've reinforced with them to minimize the noise disruptions in late hours. Having said that, the work this year is significantly reduced compared to the last couple of years, so we're not anticipating nearly as much night work as we have in past years, but there certainly will be happening.
Yeah. So will they be doing everything, do we have assurances that they will be doing everything possible during the daytime hours that they can? The noisy work?
Through the Chair, yes, I think that's a fair statement that the Grand Link have that priority as well. We've certainly dealt with them over the last couple of years and reinforcing our desires to minimize those types of activities, and they've been very good in improving their processes for that.
Okay, because I have had to deal with so many complaints over the last 2 years about noise during the night, and I'm concerned about giving carte blanche for the entire year. And so, as much as I understand that absolutely this work has to get done, and some of the work has to be done at night, I'm not excited about giving carte blanche. So I'm going to vote against this one, but I'm going to work with staff over the next 2 weeks to see if there's any way we can hone the motion to make it a little tighter.
Okay, thank you. You want me to separate that? Okay. So on to item number 3, Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, I just want to try to understand here. And the first question I had is, what is a leachate? And I looked up the dictionary, but does that become a liquid that goes through our sewer lines?
I'm not sure. Okay.
Hi,
Welcome.
I'm Linda Churchill from the Waste Management Division of the Region of Waterloo.
I'm Jerry Borovica. I'm from Regions Design and Construction, and this is a project driven by Design and Construction Region of Waterloo. However, Linda Churchill, she's a project engineer with Waterloo landfill, and she's got really good information about the leachate characteristic and what leachate is.
So the leachate is the liquid from the landfill site. So it's the water or the snow that mixes with the garbage, and then it drains to the base of the landfill, and then it's directed into certain pump stations, and then eventually to the wastewater treatment plant. So currently now the wastewater is going to the Waterloo wastewater treatment plant in its entirety. And since our Waterloo landfill actually is split now between the city of Waterloo and the city of Kitchener, that's why we're looking at diverting at least the Kitchener portion of the leachate to.
Okay, that's exactly what I wanted to know. I just want to know if we're going to start taking some of this liquid and we're putting it through our sewer system, and then we're going to pay for it at the end of the line at the treatment plant. So that's fine.
Yes.
There. I have a question of staff related to that.
Okay, you can ask your question.
Yeah, no. To our staff, does the region pay? I know the region pays us to look after their roads and things. Does the region pay to use? Does the region pay for water when they purchase it from us? And do they pay for using our sewers? That's all.
Mr. Allen?
Through the chair, in terms of sewer, yes, the region will be paying the retail rate for whatever they discharge into
Okay,
the city
so it's
sanitary
going through
sewer.
our system, and we'll be repaid for it.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that's good. That's all I wanted to make sure of. The other question is, and this is not really related to this, but does the region pay for water when they use our water?
Through the chair, I stand to be corrected, but any regional facility that is connected to the city's distribution system would certainly be on a water meter and pay
On a billing, okay.
utility rates. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to have that verified if we could sometime, but that's another point. Thank you. Thank you to the people from the region.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Yaneski?
Yeah, before you guys go away, Steve? On this particular project, there's a certain capacity of a force main that's discharging, pumping all of the stuff into the sanitary sewer system. And so what I gather from this, you now want to build a second force main. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the first force main goes to the city of Waterloo, and that's exceeded its capacity, so this is going to Kitchener.
Oh, I see. Okay. So this one is going to be built into Kitchener. Is that going to be trenchless construction or not?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Is the construction of the force main going to be trenchless construction or not?
Through the chair, partially this construction project will be built by trenchless technology, horizontal directional drilling, along Glasgow Street under the Iron Needles Boulevard, and partially will be built by open trench, and that'll be along the Henry Sturm Greenway. But even in that area, some section will be done by horizontal directional drilling.
And that'll be done this year?
The intention is to start at the end of June this year and complete it by the end of the year.
By the...
End of the 2017.
Okay, so 6 months more or less.
Yes.
Okay. And there's enough capacity downstream in the sewer system to handle all this force main discharge?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a few more questions. Mayor Verbanovic?
Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming in today. I guess my only question has to do with the issue of any potential for odor, and I noticed that the agreement will leave the responsibility for ameliorating any odors that may come about with the region. I'm just wondering what steps will be taken proactively at the front end of the construction, and then what other options do you have later on to respond to any issues that might come to light. And I raise this because many years ago we were dealing with issues from Safety Clean when we allowed Safety Clean to come under the river and bring their sewage into the system. And we did run into some problems for a small period of time that eventually we were resolved with the region putting in some charcoal filters and other things. So I'm just wondering what's being done at the front end and what are other options later on.
Okay, so we already do discharge into the city of Waterloo, and what we've integrated into that system is a system that, when we pump the leachate, we actually add an additive to reduce odors in the leachate and to bind up the hydrogen sulfide, which is what the odor comes from. So we have that system already in place for the Waterloo system, and it's our intention to have a similar system. Currently, we kind of have a drip system at that pump station. It's an injection system. So I think that's something we're looking at now, is building that injection system right into our pump station to inject the leachate to reduce odors. And then it's just a matter of making sure we're sealing downstream any potential areas where there could be some venting from the sewers. Especially in front of Waterloo, we did the same thing, and we had to put pans in some of the manholes. And just the initial ones, before the leachate had a chance to kind of be diluted by the rest of the sanitary.
Right.
through the system. So that would be our same intention here, is to do the same kind of things.
Okay, and then subsequently, if there are problems, I guess you could go to more advanced systems like the charcoal filters we use on Graber Place and so on?
Yeah, we could go look at some of those systems, or potentially change up our injection system. If we find it's not working properly, we could look at our options there.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're addressing it proactively and not waiting until complaints start and then trying to deal with it.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
We have one more question. Councillor Fernandez.
Yes, thanks. I noticed that you are going to be doing some trail improvements along the Henry Sturm Greenway. How will the trail be closed during that period of construction, and how will we redirect people who use that trail?
Yes, during the construction, the trail will be closed for pedestrian traffic. We've been asked by City of Kitchener to complete this trail because currently there is just a footpath, but not actual trail. So working with City of Kitchener staff, we are designing this new trail, and then during the construction it will be closed.
Okay. How much? I mean, I know that it's a well-used connection to the Iron Horse Trail, I believe, and so it's a bit of a commuter trail. How will you redirect the trail users, like the cyclists who may be using it as a commuter trail?
We'll be using pedestrian signs, providing information to pedestrians and cyclists that certain sections of trails, not just the one you're talking about, there's also another pedestrian asphalted pathway just east of Iron Needles, so that for a relatively short duration of time will be also closed. So we will place the pedestrian informational pedestrian signals or signs in strategic areas to detour the pedestrian traffic.
Okay, and the work is anticipated to start in this late spring of this year?
Approximately at the end of the June.
Oh, end of June
this year.
And 6 months, right? That's what.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. We have no further questions, and we're going to move the items separately, with 1 and 3 together, and then item 2 has been requested to be pulled out. So all those in favor for item 1 and 3? That's carried. Item number 2, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, that concludes the consent items. Now we are going to be dealing with discussion items, and the first discussion item is dealing with the Balzer Creek Trail, and staff are going to provide a 5-minute presentation, and then from there we will have delegates, and then after that we will take staff questions. Welcome.
Thank you. Through the chair, we're just going to give a brief overview of the project and provide some background as well as discuss the project issue. So this project was initiated in 2014 primarily to address significant risk to critical infrastructure and stream erosion, exposing existing sewer infrastructure. So these images just give you a flavor of the challenge that we're dealing with. It's an exposed sanitary manhole on the right, which we currently have no access to, and that's an exposed storm sewer on the left where the stream has eroded so much that it's actually moved several meters over, causing this infrastructure to be exposed. With the beginning of the project in 2014, as an environmental assessment, we had 2 public information centers, one in April of 2015 and one in September of 2015. We also went to environmental committee both times thereafter. We progressed through detailed design, and we had our last public meeting this past December to present the detailed design and the preferred alternative. And it was at that point which it was decided to bring this forward to address the trail issue. So public feedback, there was a general support and understanding for the stream restoration work and for the maintenance access required to the sanitary trunk sewer. The main concern that was raised was the dual-use maintenance access with a trail connection and the potential traffic on the trail abutting the back of the residences. So in response to the feedback that we did here, our consultant did an additional impact analysis for the trail connection construction We moved the trail to the furthest location possible from the rear yards while still maintaining access to the manholes for the sanitary sewer and remaining within the city property. And we've proposed enhanced plantings to provide a visual and physical buffer between the rear yards and the proposed trail. I'll just pass it to Mark Paris now from Parks to discuss the trail issue more specifically.
Okay, thank you, Nick. So the image shows the context of Reach 2 of the Balzer Creek project and the trunk sanitary, as Nick mentioned, and as shown in the report. The yellow represents the required maintenance access. The dashed blue as the gap in between is to complete as the multi-use pathway. The pathway in question would connect Fallowfield to an existing Homer Watson underpass and into the Country Hills community. So why build the trail? The trail is identified in the desired connection in the multi-use pathway master plan, but beyond that, there are a number of other benefits. Improved connectivity and walkability by linking multiple communities with a continuous and accessible pathway. There are limited transportation alternatives in the area. There is no east-west connection within 1.2 square kilometers within the community between Bleams and Blockline roads. The complete trail provides approximately 91 homes south of Brisbane, a direct and convenient connection to Country Hills Public School. And 75% of the trail will be built as paved access to manholes, regardless of the trail initiative. Some other considerations as well for the alignment. The trail is located within a city-owned 10-meter wide access corridor. The open space to the south are private lands, meaning trail development here is not currently permitted, would be cost prohibitive, and increases impacts to the open space and wetland. The on-road alternatives, as you see in the dashed red in the screen in front of you, creates conflict between vehicles parking and pedestrian cyclists. So I provided a number of examples, particularly two on the screen. The following two slides show examples of trails with similar proximity to residences, both in the Dune South area. This one in particular is Pine Valley Road. This next one also is Pine Valley. In both cases, vegetation is used both as an immediate and long-term buffer delineating private and public spaces. So to conclude, the opportunity to implement an off-road trail connecting multiple communities that both achieves the goals of the master plan, is a direct and convenient transportation route, is cost-effective, safely separates vehicles and pedestrians, and is supported by the Cycling and Trails Advisory Committee. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thanks, Mr. Paris. We do have a delegation, and I will take questions to staff after the delegation. And our first delegate is Mr. Carl Wolf, and pursuant to Council's procedural bylaw, delegations are permitted to address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. And welcome, Mr. Wolf, and we'll let you get set up here. Are you set up already?
I think so.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor, Council members, and members of the Community Infrastructure Services Committee. Thank you for your time today. My name is Carl Wolf, and I'm one of the affected residents of Brisbane Drive and Brisbane Court along Reach 2 of the proposal for the multi-path. We reject the idea of a connected trail going right in our backyard. The report, I think, was forwarded to you, so you have all read the report that I've submitted. Would that be a fair statement that you've been able to see the report?
We did receive your email. It was forwarded to committee.
Okay. So, according to the new pathways in established neighborhoods from the multi-use trails master plan that was approved by Council in May 2014, when new pathways are proposed for established neighborhoods, which we consider we are, quote, real and perceived concerns over increased pedestrian traffic, access to real yards, invasion of privacy, and a perception that there may be an increased potential for vandalism and theft. We, the residents, we agree for your concerns that you highlighted, that those are also our concerns. We feel that very strongly. When we purchased homes in that new subdivision, we paid, the people that back on Brisbane, we paid an $18,000 lot upgrade with the understanding that nothing would ever be built in this GRCA protected wetland area. according to the environmental staff environmental assessment, nothing was ever proposed for a path from the EA open houses that were given. If we look along the path, where Reach 2 is where I've highlighted there in the center area of the, I think it's 1.2 kilometer complete restoration that staff is talking about. You'll notice in there that I've highlighted 2 areas where it's according to the master trails plan. Down in the bottom there it says note existing connections, and so that is not actually shown in the staff plan for the trail report. So there are existing connections that have not been identified that come from the master plan. Again, from staff report, there are they mention from the public information forums, but they don't mention that we did send, we created letters of protest to this plan in November 2015. At that time, I had received letters of protest signed off 18 of 25 affected residents that disagreed with the connected trail system in our backyard. Proposals that I had made to staff are put the green line that's shown in the bottom, which runs along the existing, the proposed subdivision, or along Brisbane Drive, which is the blue line. This came from the next slide came from Matrix Solutions from the December meeting, public information meeting, showing a bunch of photos and pictures. It's hard to see, but there are really no houses close to any of these paths that were shown. In the bottom left-hand photo, there is one house that can be seen up on the right-hand side. So there you can see there's an elevated boardwalk that is going through that space. So we propose, right, if both the blue line is rejected going down Brisbane Drive and the green line is rejected, we recommend, one of our suggestions would be put an elevated boardwalk right down through the center of the Balzer Greenway to keep the path as far away from the homes as possible. And that way, the people walking on the path could use it to observe all of the wildlife and things that are available there that we so enjoy. On this slide here, again from city staff report, I've quoted out some of their report, and they say active transportation, critical off-road links, school routing. It sounds like this pathway is more concerned, is from city staff point of view, is more like a city road, not a pathway. It's not an occasional use pathway from their comments, from their statements. So our proposal is, and again, city staff has said that it's only a 3-season proposal. So we would recommend that, I can see I'm running out of time here, we would recommend that we eliminate the boardwalk that has been suggested on the blue area where I've got the red X there. We agree wholeheartedly with the yellow paths that are given for the maintenance access and route all of the traffic and the pathway onto Brisbane Drive, which will then be a four-season solution because we as residents of Brisbane Drive, we are obligated to shovel our sidewalks, keep all of that clear, and so all of the concerns about people traveling from Brisbane to Homer Watson for the school access, they can then use the sidewalks for 4 seasons.
Can you wrap up, Mr. Wolf, please?
Okay. So in principle, we agree to 95% of the plan that the city has presented with all of the maintenance infrastructure, rerouting the Balzer Creek, all of that is understood and agreed to. We agree to the alignment of the Balzer Creek, we agree to the vegetation, the forestry, all of the report that city staff put together, except doing the connection of making it a fully connected city path. So we would say, move the path, the designated path for the middle, for the 400 meters onto Brisbane Drive. And then also, this is just a panoramic image out of my backyard I know it's hard. It's kind of hard to see here, but from the right-hand side to the left-hand side, you can see because we live on elevated homes. My deck is above that, so we're 18 feet above, looking down. So when we're trying to enjoy our serenity of the area, we're looking down, and there's no amount of vegetation or trees that will cover a pathway going 10 feet off of my backyard. So in summary, I would just ask that if this is pushed through, that we then be allowed we ask that the city construct at least a 6-foot-high retaining wall for Reach 2, or construct a chain link fence along that full reach to protect our privacy and security for our homes, because now you're building a street in our backyard, or for the city to give us consideration that if I want to protect my own privacy, my own home, from my fears of what my perceived fears are, of what could happen on that pathway, that I be allowed to have city approval to build a retaining wall or a fence without any encumbrance from the city saying, no, you are not allowed to protect your own private property. You know, there has to be some give and take. So
Okay.
Thank you very much. That is my...
We do have some questions for you. Thanks for your presentation. Councillor Udeski?
Yeah, thank you for coming in and making your presentation on behalf of your residents on the street. I took the opportunity over the weekend to walk in behind that area, as well as along Brisbane and the walkways, as much as you can, because you really can't get through there that much. And based on your suggested alternative, going the walkway being on the south side, if you go back to the one who's the blue line, the green line there. Yes. You get to Fallowfield, it's a huge drop from Fallowfield to the creek, and in there is 3 huge culverts. So how would you get across from the south part of that drawing up to behind house number, house number 5, I guess, or 3? Because that's such a huge difference, and then plus that there's the slope of the land is extremely difficult.
Yeah, if this doesn't show up there. I don't know, is there a pointer here?
No, I don't.
No. Where the green line meets, where the green line makes the 90-degree joggle up, right there, if you walk it, you will see that there's the city has already built, or the developer has already built, there are those concrete stones where the grass can grow through. There is a path already from the joggle going down into the wetland area.
So behind homes 3, 5, and 11 addressed? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I can't point on the screen. I'm sorry. It's
the first 3 houses by Fallowfield.
Yes, right there, right where on Fallowfield, where the green line makes a 90-degree joggle. Yeah. Right there, if you were to walk there, you would see that there's a 30-degree slope that has already been constructed as part of the developer's plan. And it's using those concrete stones where the grass grows through.
Okay, but it looked very significantly steep.
Yes, if you go 15 feet north of that, yes, it's all gravel and stone. It is very deep.
Right. Now, go back to the page 5 of your presentation. You're on page 7. In there, you've identified along the creek system BBBBB. What does BBB stand for? It's nothing identified in your report.
That's from the master trails plan. I just copied that image. I believe that's the proposed trail that is before us today.
And what's the letter B stand for?
I'm not sure. That comes from...
All right. And the last question I have regarding is one of the alternatives suggested was instead of using behind the properties, using Brisbane Drive, like the sidewalk or the road for movement of people.
Well, my suggestion would be for the movement of pedestrian traffic, use the sidewalk, and then do a no parking on that, like put no parking signs up and put a diamond bicycle lane so that you can provide full access. And just going back, I remember now the B stands for a bridge.
Okay.
So the left-hand B was the bridge that I think staff is proposing going underneath Homer Watson. There's some reconstruction work there. The middle B is concerning the boardwalk, which is in, I forget which slide it's on. There, the blue line, the dashed blue line. After City staff has done some more evaluation, because that is a Grand River Conservation wetland area, they need to do half of that, so about 100 meters of raised boardwalk. So that cost is in there. That has to be done with helical piles. It has to be raised because it is a wetland. You can't just put pavement on top of it. It will be washed away.
How long have you lived there?
11 years.
Have you seen much flooding in the area during high rain-off seasons?
Yes, when we have an extreme event, which is called, about 2 years ago, the whole area fills with water, but it's for a brief time. But yes, the whole area can fill with water. It is meant as an environmental watershed area.
Well, that's its purpose. Does the flooding reach into your backyards?
No, just right to the backyard, because our backyards are at about a 45-degree steep
Oh, I know.
angle.
It's quite a significant drop there,
Yeah,
too.
we're raised 15 feet off of the floodplain area.
Right. And one last question. If the city, if there's agreement to build a fence, 6-foot-high wall, fence, retaining wall, you're still high up, you'd still see it right over that fence. Would it be any usefulness to it?
Well, I believe it would be useful for lots of people if you were to walk. You suggested you walk that area. Lots of people have just open, exposed hot tubs. Lots of people have gardens in the back. So at least a 6-foot-high fence would give some deterrent on somebody walking by and not pulling up your carrots that you've worked on. You know, it's a minimum deterrent. Obviously, we are not happy with a trail going in our backyard. And I invite anyone from council or staff. I did have Matt Wilson over to my house from staff to show him actually the lay of the land. And I invite you to come to my house at any time and look and actually observe what we're talking about before you recommend approval.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Fernandez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Rolfe, for coming. Sorry, make sure I'm saying your Wolf.
Wolf, yes.
Thank you for coming in. So you're suggesting on one of your pictures, and you don't need to go to the slide because I remember it, and I have your presentation here in front of me. Going on to Brisbane Court on the sidewalk, but would you really think that that would be safe for the residents and pedestrians to have cyclists on the sidewalk?
No, I'm suggesting do a no parking along the south side of Brisbane Drive, Brisbane Court, put a diamond bicycle path, which is all over the city, so the cyclists should still go on the road and pedestrians on the sidewalk.
Have you surveyed your neighbors about their feeling on having no parking in front of their houses?
No, I have not asked that specific question. Okay. But I have emailed the report to all of the affected neighbors, and I have got agreement from all of them back saying that that they agree with the proposal. Okay. Because if we're talking about Plan A or Plan B, they would rather have the traffic on Brisbane Drive, Brisbane Court, than in the backyard.
Okay, that's understood. All right, your property is somewhere between the blue dotted line on this map?
No, I am I'm number 31. If you can.
Yep.
So I am just to the right of there's a turnaround. On the yellow line, there's a turnaround. So I'm just one or two houses from the yellow turnaround.
Okay, all right. And the slope from your property, let's just use the I have that. From your property going, let's say, west towards Homer Watson, that slope is all the way down that stretch to the yellow dotted line that was on your map?
It feathers off slightly, but yes, there is a slope there.
Okay.
So the houses are elevated from the floodplain.
So essentially, people would have to climb up that slope to get to those backyards.
I don't know. It's because the city, our property line abuts to the 10-meter city easement. So it's suggested that the path is on the 10-meter easement, and staff says they will put it to the furthest side of the easement. So from you to me is about 10 meters. So as opposed to the path being here, the path would be where you are.
Okay. And just so you know, that the pictures that Mr. Paris showed you are situations in my ward. So I have dealt with exactly the same situation that you're dealing with, and there has been no problems in selling of houses, and there has been no problems with vandalism along any of those. And some of the trail is actually closer to the houses than what I'm seeing along here. But just so you know, I've been in exactly the same situation with my residents.
Okay.
Okay? All right. Thank you very much for coming in and for your presentation. I have questions of staff at the appropriate time.
Click in when, okay. Councillor Gazzola?
Thank you for coming in, and I do, just as a note, know that you represent pretty much most of the residents on Brisbane Street
Yes.
at all of the meetings, and it's unfortunate that this type of meeting takes place at this hour of the day. It's difficult for more residents to attend. And also thank you for allowing me to send out your complete report to all members of council ahead of time so that they were well warned of what you were going to say. Just a few questions. How long have you resided there? I think you said
11 years.
Yeah. When you moved in there, or were thinking of moving in there, did you have any idea, or did you have any knowledge of possible trails in the future?
No, absolutely not. We were never conveyed that idea. We paid $18,000. Well, the residents along the blue yellow line there that back on paid $18,000 lot premium to back onto a GRCA protected wetland. That we were told for the 300 meters from the blue yellow line to the other side of the development, nothing would ever be built there because it was a GRCA protected wetland. It made sense. But I have all of the documentation at home buried somewhere. I could pull it out for you.
And you're well aware, and you do understand that there are really two issues here. There's the realigning of the creekway, and there's a trail. And you, from what I understand, you have no problem with realigning of the creek.
Yes, from all the public information sessions by Matrix Solution, this has been going on. The EA study has been going on for at least 3 years now. And so we agree to 95% of staff plan, of the realignment, the vegetation, everything. The only thing we disagree with is, and even the yellow lines coming from both sides for the manhole cover, we understand city must protect infrastructure. I expect city to protect our infrastructure. We don't want that sewer line to ever back up, and if it is, they need to be able to get in there with their truck right away. That's all understood. We just do not want the connecting boardwalk and with a diversion up onto Brisbane Drive as an alternative. Yes. The cheapest alternative and a four-season solution.
Yeah, you in this slide shows that you are, I guess you can appreciate that going to that very lowest route would be much more costly for the city.
Oh yeah, I'm told city has investigated that. They don't own land. They do not have an easement there, so they can't purchase it or they can't get an agreement from the developer. Yeah. I'm going the wrong way, sir.
Okay, and,
they said they have investigated the green line, and that's in their report. They say that's not possible.
Yeah, can you just go back to that last? I'm sorry, the one that it was at, and from what I am understanding, you and the neighborhood that you're representing would be in agreement with this compromise that you put forward there, where there would still be opportunity for the public to go to the back to see the natural areas, but the main route would be diverted to the front of the homes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have some questions of staff, and when it comes to dealing with the issue, I would like to put an amended recommendation forward.
Okay, we have no further questions for you, Mr. Wolf, so if we have questions for staff, please click.
Thank you for your time.
Councillor Fernandez.
Okay. So, in reviewing the map, and I know that you came to our cycling committee and presented this as well, Mr. Paris. The boardwalk that is in the blue dashed line, would that be similar to what you showed us in the pictures from Dune South and what I experienced with my residents in Pine Valley and Knox Court?
Mr. Paris? Through the chair, yes, it'd be a similar construction.
Okay. The resident pointed out that there is some flooding sometimes, high water in that area. How would we address that for the non-boardwalked area? Would we be looking at possible washing out of that trail on either side? Because obviously from your pictures, there is significant water flows down the creek. And what I would be concerned about is operational cost ongoing if we were to build that trail and we saw a situation like we do on behind Old Carriage Drive.
Through the chair, the trail is going to be paved with asphalt, which will reinforce the surface when it comes to surface flow like that.
Okay, sorry. So do you see any challenges with some of the requests that the residents have made? So, for example, if they wanted to add a fence into their backyard. So this is on page 13 of the list of their requests, to allow for a no-cost permit and engineering approvals for individual. I mean, I don't think we would have any problem with somebody putting a fence on their property to protect their own property and their own well-being, right?
No, we wouldn't have a problem with that.
Okay. And as far as a city-constructed 6-foot high retaining wall for the reach of 2, which is the stretch between the last blue arrow to the left of the screen. That's reach 2, isn't it?
Reach 2 is the image you see in front of you. That's between Homer Watson and Fallowfield.
The entire part is reach 2?
The entirety is
okay,
reach 2.
Sorry. So they're asking for a construction of a retaining wall for the entire reach? I should have asked this question of the resident. He's nodding. Okay. I don't believe, where have we done something like that and why would we have done it in the past for other projects?
Through the chair, the simple answer is we haven't done it in the past. We've used primarily vegetation as a delineation between private and public uses.
Right. So knowing the area that we spoke about earlier, Knox Court and Pine Valley, we did a tremendous amount of vegetation planting in that area. We walked the trail with the residents. We pointed out the areas. Is there a lot of high tree vegetation that needs to be removed to get the work done along this reach?
I believe most of the corridor will be cleared, so the vegetation will be new. It will take some time to develop, but it's a long-term separation goal.
Okay. But one of the challenges we had with the development of the trail in my ward was that there were some larger trees that had to be removed. Not very many, actually, because we did a really good job of navigating around those. Would that be one of the concerns you heard from residents, is that there's significant trees that would be removed? I'm talking about large stature trees.
I don't believe that's one of the concerns from the PICs. It's primarily the privacy issues that Mr. Wolf had discussed earlier.
And one last question. The second point that they're talking about is constructing a high chain length, the reach of for the entire reach of 2, specifically between 533 and 529, which I think is the yellow line going up to Brisbane Court on this map. We do often put chain link fences delineating between our trails and private property, do we not?
Through the chair, the fencing he's referring to is between walkway blocks, which is a standard. It's a 4-foot chain link fence. And the proposal is to have a 6-foot chain link fence similar to the walkway blocks behind the properties.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. Maybe you could just
Sure.
speak closer to your mic.
So the fence he's referring to is the 4-foot fence that's typical in between walkway blocks. What he's referring to is the 6-foot chain link fence, similar to the walkway block in behind the properties.
Okay. My understanding was that I see that they want it along the entire reach, and of course that would be entirely up to the residents if they wanted to protect their their property. But there is already a trail fence, like the 4-foot one, between 533 and 529.
Yes, there's already 2 fences on both sides to delineate the walkway.
Okay. So they're not asking for a increase in that height then, from your understanding?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Sure, okay. Just quickly, the reason that we wouldn't consider the yellow line at the very bottom of this picture is because of what?
Can you repeat the question, sir?
Sorry, the reason that we wouldn't consider the yellow line as indicated by the residents on the very bottom of this map, what's the rationale that we would not be doing? I mean, besides the cost, which of course is significant, we're going quite out of the way there. Can you help me understand any other reasons why we wouldn't consider that?
Yeah, through the chair. That southern land is actually privately owned. We don't currently have permission to develop a trail there. It'd be cost prohibitive, as you mentioned, and also increase the impact to the wetland.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for your answers.
Councillor Unesky.
I've got several questions as well. You referred in the report to 3 reaches, and I see reach 1 and reach 2 and another reach 1. Where's reach 3?
Mr. Boyd?
Yes, through the chair, reach 1 is closest to Schneider Creek. Reach 2 is the one we're discussing right now, and reach 3 is further upstream of that. It's just incorrectly labeled.
Reach 3 is where, sorry?
Further upstream. It's just incorrectly labeled. I'm just trying to find the map. Where is it?
So is reach 1 labeled incorrectly, one of them?
Yeah, sorry, I got that wrong. So reach 1 is from Old Country Drive to Homer Watson. Reach 2 is Homer Watson to Fallowfield, and reach 3 is Fallowfield to Schneider Creek.
Okay. All right. So you had me puzzled there. Okay, that takes care of that one. You're talking about the easement along the back of those properties. If it's an easement, who owns the property?
Through the chair, the city owns the property.
City-owned property. Well, why would you have an easement on your own property? It makes no sense.
The property is a block.
I'm sorry?
And the property is a block, not an easement.
I don't understand your answer.
Mr. Golian?
Yeah, through the chair. The city owns that property. It's there for the sanitary sewer, so it is owned by the city of Kitchener.
Okay. And the other lands, who owns the other lands? Because I'm looking at the map there, you got that black dotted line that's shown there, and it sort of looks like 10 meters long. Then west of Fallowfield, there's something coming right from north to south. And then by Homer Watson, there's also a bunch of other black little lines. So are there many other owners?
Through the chair, there's one landowner to the south of the 10-meter block that the city has where the sanitary sewer currently is located. It is privately owned, yeah.
Privately owned meaning like a developer?
Like the private landowner.
Okay. So is that part of a future plan of subdivision that those lands will come to us?
That would be anticipated that they would be dedicated to the city when that subdivision moves forward.
The lands to the south there of that creek system. Okay. So you can't do anything in terms of putting a trail link along the south side of that Balzer Creek, only because it's private lands owned by the developer at this point in time.
Through the chair, that's one very important factor. But the other one is that it is primarily wetland regulated by the GRCA, and so we really aren't encouraged or in most cases allowed to build anything within regulated area. And the cost would be extremely prohibitive. That's why we need to do a section of boardwalk for that blue dashed section there,
okay,
to elevate the trail off of the actual wetland and not impact the wetland itself.
The proposed walkway by staff from Homer Watson to Fallowfield right along the back of those homes, what will be the elevation of that trail link in terms of what the topography is there right now? Would it be raised, or would it be lowered, or will it remain? I mean, it's sort of pretty low there compared to those backyards, which just drops. What would you be doing for that? And I know you need access for sanitary manhole cleanouts and all that stuff. So what's the proposal?
Yeah, through the chair, we're going to follow the existing topography as much as possible and just make sure that the trail ends up, and the maintenance access for that matter, ends up flush with the manhole lids for access for maintenance. So we aren't anticipating to change the landscape dramatically from a topographical perspective. We will be looking to tie in to the existing backyards at their existing elevation.
Okay, thank you. And my last question deals with traffic. With Brisbane, one of the suggested alternatives was to have the pedestrians, the bicyclists, go up the walkway between 529 and 533 and then go along the south side of Brisbane. One of the comments was to maybe put a bicycle lane in there, or maybe not have any parking or parking eliminated from the south side. I'm just wondering if traffic staff have any comments on that, whether it's a good thing to do or whether it's required, or what the process has to be. To Mr. Carmichael.
Can you click it in? Mr. Carmichael?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. In response to that question regarding what type of cycling facility on Brisbane Court, I would suggest with the extremely low traffic volumes on that roadway, it's basically only serving the houses that live in the area, that putting a bicycle lane would probably be overkill and not necessary, that we could direct cycling traffic through that corridor just through signs and use the existing roadway and thereby not requiring to take the parking off the roadway.
Okay, that's a good answer. Thank you very much.
Through you, Chair, and just to follow up to Mr. Carmichael's response, we did connect in with transportation staff with regards to that option. One of the concerns raised was related to the grade differential coming up from the maintenance access up to Brisbane Court for cyclists. So while it is feasible to direct both cycling and pedestrian access up, it's not ideal from a grade perspective for cyclists to move up through that walkway block up to Brisbane Court. So I just wanted to provide that additional context.
Mr. Carmichael? You're good with that? Okay. Councillor Gazzola, are you have questions or? Okay.
On that last one, I bicycled there on a number of occasions, and there's no real problem. Even an old guy like me can get up there. So. But questions to staff. The sewer goes through there now, does it not? How long has it been there?
Chair, I want to say late 60s.
Yeah, how have we serviced it now? How do we deal with it?
So as far as I am aware, we have not serviced it to date, but I don't know for sure.
It's been there for 50 years and we've never serviced it, so that's not a big issue.
As far as I'm aware, we haven't, but I can't speak for what happened previous to 10 years ago.
All right. The
just in terms of the servicing, and as you could see from some of the photos related to the creek migration and the erosion, that risk of failure of that infrastructure has been quite large, and without access to those structures, it makes it very difficult to repair. So ideally, whenever we put in sanitary or stormwater, any underground infrastructure, we would have the ability to access it. And further, that infrastructure is utilized to a greater degree as development has occurred in that area. So that, again, the risk increases.
Okay, good. Thank you. I don't have any problems with that. Just on the lower trail there, do we have any idea what that would cost to go through there?
Through the chair, are you referring to the boardwalk that's required?
No, I'm talking about if we went down where the bottom yellow line is on this photo right here. that was one of the alternatives the neighborhood put forward. Do we have any ballpark as to what the cost involved might be for that? If you could do it.
Through the chair, we do not have a ballpark. As Nick said earlier, it was unfeasible due to land ownership and other considerations as well.
Okay, so we have no idea of the cost. Do we have any boardwalks currently on wetlands now?
Through the chair, yes, we do.
So that's fine. So that's possible.
Yes,
that's possible. Okay. Okay. Those are, I think, are the only. My last question is that blue section there, where we're going to put in the crosswalk. Do you have any idea what that's going to cost?
Through the chair, we estimate the boardwalk to be about $100,000 to $125,000.
Okay, and the total cost of that whole trail, ballpark?
We've estimated through Reach 1 and 2 to be about $400,000.
Between Reach?
Reach 1 and Reach 2. So from the
Okay, so
beginning,
how much on Reach 2? What's the cost of Reach 2?
we haven't split that number out yet. We just have a total project cost at this point.
Okay, and so you also don't know what the cost might be if you go up using the alternative that's being put forward by the neighborhood.
Through the chair, it would be a cost reduction from the amount allocated to the boardwalk.
A substantial reduction, right?
It would be substantial. It would be less the boardwalk.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Councillor Davey?
Thank you. Just one question of staff. I'm just having a little difficulty understanding. I'm not completely familiar with the area. Councillor Gazzola indicated that he doesn't have difficulty cycling in the grade separation that looked like it went from Homer Watson up to Brisbane. But when I look online, I don't actually see a trail there yet. It looks like grass. Is there actually a cyclable area in that grade separation at present?
Through the chair, that is a turf stone surface right now. So you see grass, but it is reinforced.
Okay, and that connects down to Homer Watson?
That connects to, it's an existing emergency access, so it is connected at the current time.
Okay, so it's that, like that sort of diamond shaped where the grass can go through?
Concrete unit pavers with grass growing in the middle.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that concludes the questions. So, Councillor Gazzola, you want to bring forward your amendment? Do you have something
Yes,
written
I
down?
would like to bring forward the proposal that the residents are putting forward here that basically states that the trail would fill in the yellow parts at the bottom, which would give access to our city vehicles to maintain the sewer, and it also would allow public to go into that area and into the rough area, and would then to go to make the connection. And we're hearing a lot about the connections. The connections would go up to the street level. Okay, and I have one question that I forgot to ask staff. I wonder if I could ask it.
Go ahead.
My other question is, when did this trail first appear? When was that first in any of our master plans or documents or what have you? Do we know when?
Through the chair, it was identified in our Trails Master Plan in 2012. Prior to that, the master plan is our current set of guidelines.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'd like to make a comment, but I'll wait till...
Can you, okay, I'm not 100% sure what you're exactly asking.
I'm saying that
is there an example, like this picture that's right now is the yellow line that's being proposed? Is the pathway that you're asking for?
I'm saying that the yellow line would be put in on the bottom, but that to go from one section to the other, the blue line, the blue section not be put in, but that people would, if they want to connect from one end to the other, they use the trail up on the sidewalk.
Ms. Fletcher?
So Through the chair, I'd just like to clarify a couple of points that staff have made. We don't own the land to the south. So staff has not gone to the extent of costing out any project to the south because we don't own the lands. So
I'm not asking. No. You see the trail with the blue dotted lines?
Yes.
Okay, the city owns all of that.
Right.
Okay? So I'm just saying I'm not talking about the lower trail.
Fair
Okay,
enough.
I'm talking about as an alternative. You put in your trail there but you don't put in the blue dotted lines. And in order for people to make the connection, they use the street. So it's all city land. There's no...
So through the chair, if I can clarify, is the council member suggesting that we're putting something through so that there can be maintenance access from the left side to the right side of the yellow line?
Yeah, the yellow lines give you maintenance access, okay? And you're talking about paving that, so that would make it accessible not only to vehicles but to the public also. The neighborhood have agreed.
Okay, Councilor Gazzola. So what I hear for your amendment is basically to remove the blue line.
Basically, that's the
Okay.
issue. Yeah.
We have some
That leaves that in natural state.
We have some comments or questions. Or yes, comments. Councilor Kelly Galloway Seelock.
It's actually a question. It'll be quick, I'm sure of it. In my experience, having two dead ends may cause a bigger security risk than having a full trail through. Would that be also a concern of staff because of unwanted people coming to a dead end and then being able to park themselves there for a while and do whatever they choose to do?
Through the chair, dead ends do get frustrating for trail users. We have a number of them, as you mentioned, and we try to avoid them. So to clarify that issue, the removal of the blue dotted line would just mean the removal of the multi-use pathway.
Ms. Goldberg?
Through chair, and further to Councillor Galloway Seelock's question, what that would provide is access in without any throughfare, meaning that for those looking for a quiet spot to park themselves, that would be a concern from a security perspective. So by users being aware that they cannot maintain access through, it'll be less utilized, but it may become a gathering spot, as Councillor Galloway Seelock alluded to.
Yeah, and just in my history, I know that hearing from Councillor Fernandez, as that trail went forward in June, I know prior to that trail going forward, my evidence is that there was a dead end and there was quite a bit of unwanted activity that happened there prior to that trail. So those are my comments.
Okay, Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, I do see the concerns that were raised, and I've gathered you've accepted Councillor Gazzola's motion for the amendment?
Yes.
Do you need a seconder?
No, it's committee.
Okay. So on that basis, and I know there's concern about security, etc. I mean, signage at either end of the entranceway could be put indicating this is a service access for city maintenance purposes only, and no trail link. And I think maybe that could address it. And of course, if people coming from east side of Fallowfield cross the road, you'd probably have signage saying trail link, follow the arrow. And then it can go along Brisbane and then come back down the walkway between 529 and 533. And of course, even in that area, you could have signage saying trail link, follow the walkway, and then use that. So I think signage could still address the issue and still indicate only access for city maintenance trucks purposes for the sewer issue. So that's the way I see it. So I think that's maybe the way to go.
Mayor Verbanovic. Okay. Ms. Fletcher?
Through the chair, if I'm understanding correctly, where we're going is Councillor Gazzola's recommendation is simply counter to the staff report and staff recommendation.
I would tend to agree, correct, yes.
Yes, it is, yes.
Yes, you're right.
I'm a counter guy.
Okay. Mayor Verbanovic?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just want to be clear, because I too would share some of the concerns that Councillor Galloway-Sealock articulated earlier with respect to having two dead ends coming to an area in the middle that, quite frankly, would most likely see people creating their own pathway through the forest, or through the green area where the blue hatched line is right now, to get to the other area. And I think that could present a variety of challenges that otherwise might not exist, including the possibility of kids having bush parties and things like that. If I also understood correctly, the pathway that we're talking about is at the bottom of a slope that largely sees most people's backyards at a higher level. So first of all, from a privacy point of view, I mean, you kind of would have to sort of look up to be able to see things. And number two, my experience, again, in my time as a ward councillor, has suggested to me that, in fact, these kinds of scenarios after the fact have not been a huge problem. And one of the ones that comes to mind, I think it was on Tinatawa, if I remember correctly, where we went in after the fact, put in a trail behind a set of homes. It actually was a sloped situation, not as sloped as this. And it's actually proven to have worked quite well. And I think subsequently we actually had the neighborhood ask for a lookout in that area because of the way it was created and set up. I think I would be more inclined to work with the neighborhood on the issue of some kind of fencing partnership or something along those lines to address the concerns around privacy, because it is something that's coming after the fact and after the neighborhood was developed, and less inclined to sort of see a dead end being built, which in the end I think would create a much larger set of problems for the neighborhood.
Councillor Singh?
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Chair, I share the concerns that are outlined by Councillor Gazzola on the area that I represent on the other side of Homer Watson. I seem to get similar type of concerns along the pathway that's proposed as a connection to this route. But at the same time, obviously there are apparent issues about access and discontinuation of a service lane that's already there. So that would be my question to staff quickly, if you would allow. From Mr. Golan, we heard that the sewer line isn't all that often serviced here, and as well with the neighborhood going presumably one day soon enough that there would be a subdivision coming where there's empty lands. Do we have a means of maybe having some sort of access or connection at that point when that area develops?
So through you, Chair, in terms of the location of the sanitary system is follows the alignment follows the alignment of the proposed trail. So regardless of the developments to the south, in terms of timing of that,
too far down.
That's correct. And the reason why it makes sense to partner the trail development with the creek development is in terms of economies of scale.
No, you're not following. So what I'm saying is if you follow from Fallowfield, if you follow the yellow line, that's a forested area. Whenever those developed areas do happen, I'm sure there'll be a parkland dedication or conveyance back to the city. Would we not have an opportunity still to have a connection, although it may not be straight line as what's being proposed right now, but that connection could happen so it's not a dead end? So it would almost follow that kind of the blue line, as you want to call it, not the dotted line, but the solid line of some possible connection, so it's a continuation rather than a dead end. Would we not be able to do that? Through a future conveyance, obviously, of a forested area, which would presumably come back to us anyways.
Yes, so through you, Chair, if I understand what Councillor Singh is proposing, it would be to continue with the maintenance access, but where there's the blue dotted line, look at some alternative alignment to the south.
That's correct.
When opportunities present itself through any future land development and conveyance of lands to the city. So I certainly in the future that may become a possibility. We're at this point, there's uncertainty in that. Further, I think we'd want to look at, you'd be increasing the length of that trail then to connect it up. So I think, again, from an economic perspective and a financial impact perspective, we would need to look at that closely as well.
Ms. Fletcher, you have something else to add?
Sure. Through the chair, I think to Councillor Singh's point, we just have no indication of when timing of that potential may happen. And as has been pointed out, we see great urgency to get in and maintain our infrastructure in the short term. To a couple of the other points that have been made about security, staff would agree with those comments. The other thing that I may ask staff to comment is if people create their own pathway through the dotted line, there is impact on the environmentally sensitive areas as well. So if we don't delineate the path that people should travel, there is potential to damage the environmentally sensitive areas even more.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Fernandez?
So I thought we were in comments, but I see that we've got questions going, so I'm not really sure where we are.
I allowed Councillor Singh too because he was late to the discussion. So.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to make my comments about this and understanding that I know exactly what you as residents are feeling because I went through this with our residents and they had lived behind this future trail with the impression that nothing was going to be built behind them for many years, that if there was a trail, it was going to be significantly south of their properties. So when we met with the residents on site, Mr. Paris was part of that group, a number of other staff. We walked the area with the residents, and this was really helpful because they identified with our staff significant concerns, whether it was a tree or whether it was the slope or where they wanted more screening, where they wanted more vegetation. And I would like to really suggest that the residents do that. I'm pretty sure Mr. Paris and some of his group would be willing to do that with you guys. Am I assuming something? I don't want to assume anything before I put that forward.
Mr. Parrish?
Through the chair, we'll work with the community to meet the needs or to react to it. I think there's some fair compromises that can be reached to meet both goals, to separate the privacy and to get this connection. And if I may reinforce, a sidewalk isn't a multi-use pathway. We have a vision with our multi-use pathway master plan that says the off-road experience is very important.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay,
you don't need to go
sorry.
any further because you're eating into my comment. So in speaking with the residents along Knox Court, Pine Valley, and I use that route a lot. So I am very cognizant of the changes that have happened behind those properties, and some of them have that slope as you do, Mr. Wolf, and some of them do not. We've done a fairly good job of screening the ones that are actually almost level with the trail. And I see people use it on a regular basis, but now you've got eyes on the front of your property and eyes on the back of your property in terms of vandalism or privacy concerns. Yes, you've got hot tubs, and there are hot tubs along Pine Valley, and there are pools along Pine Valley and Knox Court as well. So I want to express to you that although you and your residents feel, and your neighbors feel that this is a really negative thing that's happening, I've experienced the opposite with lots of resistance. Believe me, I stood in front of 50 people at one point in time who were really resistant to this happening. When I go through the trails and when I'm on the boardwalks and I run into residents, I hear over and over and over again how thrilled they are, how happy they are that there's that connection. It helps school children move through that area from a neighborhood to the schools, and we've protected some significant wetland area by putting in the boardwalk. It stops people from encroaching into the sensitive wetland areas that's regulated by the GRCA. The one comment I do want to make is that I'm not sure why you wouldn't have been aware of this through the developer or the builder, because my understanding is they always put these large maps out and they show some delineation between community trails and schools and things like that. If that was the case, then I would actually encourage you to go back to your developer or your real estate agent, even if it is 11 years out, because this is an issue I've had consistently with the development industries and builders and real estate agents not identifying to the public that, you know what, it may not be happening for another 5 years or another 10 years, but that is the plan. That is part of the plan. And so, I've encouraged our staff to sort of get ahead of this by identifying to existing neighborhoods where we're going to be putting trail networks and trail links, and so that it's not as a surprise to the residents, and because I think that is the hardest thing to take. This is what you've been used to for the last 10, 12 years that you've been living there, and now you're going to see a significant change.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gazzola, there's no other further comments. You want to make your comments, or you're good?
No, I will make some comments. There's not a lot of comments here. I want to start off by saying that, I can appreciate where the city is going, and in my first instances looking at this, I can appreciate a lot of the things that Councillor Fernandez is saying. The big problem I have here is that when the people moved there and paid premiums for these properties, and I asked, and the first sign of a real possible trail comes up in 2012. Well, these people have already been living there for 10 years. So, normally I can buy that argument, but in this case, I have to go with the neighborhood because it's a new thing, and the whole story is here that by going up to the street, it does accomplish everything we want to accomplish. It does give the connection from one end to the other. I think the neighborhoods come up with a compromise saying, well, we'll agree with part of it, but let's move it up to the street. It does accomplish everything. And now we're hearing people want to go through this as a trail, but really staff are saying, hey, this is a major transportation connection now. If it's a major transportation connection, what better way to have it connected than on the pedestrians using clear sidewalks? Otherwise, that's closed from November to good part of March or so. So it satisfies everything. It satisfies and it respects the neighborhood who have been there for the long time. And in all of this, it saves the city a substantial number of dollars that can be put to use on other trails. So it's a compromise. The neighborhood, as the delegate stated, they're in agreement with 95% of what's before us. They just want to tweak a couple of things. In tweaking it, we're coming up with a lot of speculation, but there's no real history or no real information on it. And so let's move forward. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to say it many, many times in the future, because we've had an awful lot of discussion last week on a neighborhood strategy and how important our neighborhoods are and how if the neighborhood takes the lead, the city will support it. I mean, the people, and I have to lean this way because the people in our community, in our city that are most affected by this project are the people there that you see in that area right there. And they're the people that live there. They're the neighbors. That's their neighborhood. It's very important to them. They pretty much are one mind on this. So are we going to support our neighborhoods or only when we want to? So I would ask that we think outside the box and we accomplish everything we want to accomplish, save $150,000 in the process, and move on. Thank you. I would like a recorded vote when it does come to a vote.
Okay. Councillor Singh, I'll allow you to have...
Just a quick comment. Mr. Chair. Again, I continue to say I share much of what Councillor Gazzola has said in his concern for the area that he represents, but obviously staff have put forward a very clear rationale of why the to detour around as opposed to the proposed alignment would cause more issues down the road. So one thing I do agree that we do have to listen to our neighborhoods. We have to look for compromises. That's what we're here. It doesn't always have to be a very black and white way approach, hopefully. So I think I will support the recommendation, but again, depending on the information I get during council, I reserve the right to change my opinion. I would hope that staff would have some numbers in mind as to the fencing. These comments weren't made just frivolously, just for the sake of the public to hear, but I think there are some serious concerns if that is an avenue. If we are really determined to go along this routeway and there is a change and effect to the residents afterwards, I think we have to make some concessions there. Hopefully that information will be available during the council meeting if it's not right now.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Vrbanovic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just felt I needed to respond. I felt I needed to respond in regards to the issue of the neighborhood.
Can you hold on 1 second?
Yep.
I don't recall Mayor Vrbanovic making comments. I agree, but in the past, whenever it was in the situation, in the reverse situation, I've given you latitude, I've given every other members of latitude. I'm sorry if you can't remember them. Go ahead, Mayor Vrbanovic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very, very quickly, because I think it is important to put some context into this, particularly when we start bringing in the neighborhood strategy and so on. I don't think anybody contemplated that the neighborhood strategy means that for every individual issue, those most directly impacted are going to have the final say on every issue. I'm very respectful of the residents who are here and the work that they've done. And I'm also respectful of the fact that they've come forward saying, yes, this is our preference, but here are also some other alternatives we would like to see looked at if you are going ahead with the trail in its entirety. It is true that it's your role as the ward councillor to represent their interests. It's the role of the rest of council to, quite frankly, find the balance between the particular resident concerns and the issue and how this issue relates to the greater community as a whole, and to find that appropriate balance. These issues aren't easy, and they're not black and white. But I want to remind this council as well that it was this council that has wholeheartedly supported our trail master plan. And so we can't on one side say, okay, we're supporting our citizens who have said one of their number one recreational priorities are the installation of trails. And then when it comes to the installation of trails, say, well, whoa, we're not going to do it here and we're not going to do it there and so on. And so that's where it becomes council's role to find that right balance. And where it is in an existing neighborhood, yes, it might mean us undertaking some additional costs in order to find that reasonable medium that addresses concerns, but also looks at it from an overall community point of view.
Thank you. Councillor Gazzola, I'm not going to be taking any further comments, okay? I've given enough latitude. This item's already over the time allotted. I'm going to make my final comments. And I want to thank Mr. Wolf for coming in, and I am very sympathetic to his concerns. And but when I look at this holistically throughout the city, in particular in my ward, I have many areas in my ward that have the exact same circumstance that you're talking to. In fact, I have one behind my house, and it's an unofficial trail, and it's very similar to yours with a slope as well. And I don't really have that much concerns with what I have in my ward. And in fact, when I've seen residents in the area that I represent, they want more further trail connectivity when we have those trails behind their homes. I've experienced the opposite. And as far as the contrary to a motion that's being put forward by Councillor Gazzola, I can't support that. I can't support a trail to nowhere, to a dead end. I can't support that. It's just inefficient use of city funds, and where the trail's already there, using existing the sewer connections underneath there. It's going to be built there, and then just to have it go to a dead end makes absolute no sense to me. And staff have committed to providing a buffer, and I've seen those examples in Councillor Fernandez's ward and everything else. It seems to be accommodating. And with that, it was called a recorded vote. For the amendment, we're going to move the amendment, so the recorded vote is for the amendment. I mean, not amendment, contrary motion. Sorry. All those in favor? Opposed? Do we have, Councillor Gazzola, are you moving the staff's recommendation? Okay. 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 Mayor Urbanovic?
Well, just to be clear, are we going to be getting information coming back with respect to the fencing and so on for council? Because I think that needs to be part of a final recommendation.
Ms. Fletcher?
Through the chair, staff will commit to getting information back to council in advance of the council meeting.
All those, this is recorded vote again? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, thank you. So we will move on to Mr. Wolf. If you have any further comments, you're more than happy to sign on as a delegation if you have any other different aspects that you want to plead for your case. Okay?
Is that in 2 weeks at the council?
I think it's 2 weeks. March the 20th.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, dealing with item number 5, Ball Diamond Improvement Update. We do have a 5-minute presentation. Mr. Parrish, again, welcome. You're on the hot seat today.
suppose I don't need to introduce myself again then.
Go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Council, again for your time and consideration. I'll get right into it. In 2015, a master plan for Upper Canada Park was completed. However, through the design process, we identified significant budget restraints primarily due to lighting costs, impact of floodplain requirements, and required pedestrian pathways access for the ball diamonds. On July 2016, as a result of the project was being paused in July 2016, as we determined the direction for the project. The pause allowed for the evaluation of baseball growth, other ball diamond opportunities within the region, clarity of other ball diamond changes, and potential scope changes. Through the project pause, a diamond demand study was conducted to recommend short and medium-term needs of the ball diamond users. This is based on existing ball diamond inventory, past and present booking tendencies, user input sessions, and provincial trends. Some key results indicate a rental of Class A1 and A2 diamonds are currently maximized. The city also saw significant growth in diamond rentals, coinciding with significant growth experienced by key local and provincial ball organizations, as seen in the figures for Baseball Ontario and Kitchener Minor Ball. Based on the evaluation criteria, the demand study offers two critical conclusions. The city requires an additional 1.5 diamonds to meet current demand, and the city will require an additional 6 diamonds to meet short-term demand by 2021. This level of demand can be addressed by either building new diamonds or lighting existing facilities. The demand study also provides 3 recommendations as well. Review of diamond time allocation, add lights to 2 ball diamonds at Brydup Park, and continue with Upper Canada improvements with scope changes. The diamond time allocation review will create efficiencies through schedule shifting, as an example, moving start times from 6:30 p.m. to 6 p.m., and reallocation opportunities. Estimated inventory gain is half diamond and will begin immediately. We'll also be recommending adding lights to 2 ball diamonds at Brydup Park. This is the most cost-effective means to increase diamond inventory. Brydup is selected due to the diamonds being high-quality, premium diamonds region-wide, has ideal dimensions and diamond infrastructure to support targeted growth areas, and is the only remaining skinned irrigated diamond that is unlit. Lions and Jack Couch diamonds are the others. The inventory gain expected is 1.0 diamonds, and combined with the allocation review, fulfills the 1.5 diamond immediate requirement. The third recommendation is to continue with the Upper Canada Park improvements with some scope changes. The improvements will provide critical upgrades to the aged and underutilized 4 existing ball diamonds and 1 blast ball diamond, with 2 critical scope changes, one being a substitution of a multi-use diamond for a skinned infield diamond, and deferral of light standards and lights. Lighting infrastructure will be roughed in anticipation of future lighting. Through public consultation, we have met with user groups. They've been engaged throughout the demand study process. And the Brydup neighborhood residents, we've notified recommendations through letter and had a public information session discussing with staff. With this neighborhood context, some of the major concerns from residents are the noise, the player team activities, parking, scheduling, and probably most importantly, the existing issues continuing later into each night up to 11 p.m. Staff are committed to continually meeting and working with the Brydup Park community to address and mitigate these concerns. Given many of the issues currently exist, we are committed to addressing these issues regardless of the outcome of the lighting proposal. Immediate example of such mitigations, Woodside Park completed in 2012, 2 lit artificial turf fields abutting residential. We use 3 techniques, combination of fencing and enhanced planting, as you see in the image in front of you. There's netting extension for concerns of balls getting kicked in the backyard, and reduced playing time from 11 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. In conclusion, proposed ball diamond improvements direction will achieve the goals of the Upper Canada Park Master Plan, minimize costs and impacts associated with land acquisition and new diamond development, address short-term needs of the diamond users, contribute to the medium-term diamond inventory, and be achievable through existing capital funding. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have 3 delegations here, so I'm going to take, for those that are queued in, we're going to take the delegations first before we ask questions to staff. And again, I want to remind our delegations that pursuant to Council's procedure bylaw, that delegations are permitted to address the committee for a maximum of 5 minutes. And our first delegation is Ron Moybrook. I'm sorry if I...
Moybrook, thank you.
Moybrook from the Kitchener Minor Baseball Association.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you all for having me here today. Really appreciate your time. I want to talk a little bit about KMBA and regarding Lights That Bright Up and our support of having these Lights That Bright Up. So first, who is Kitchener Minor Baseball? So we've been in existence for quite a long time, since the 1950s in various forms. In 2016, we had over 900 registered players. When you look at those players and their parents and aunts and uncles and the people that are directly associated with us, we're estimating about 5,000 residents of Kitchener. Obviously, you can go wider. Everyone knows someone that's in the Baseball Association, so realistically, that could be a larger number. Each year is getting bigger. Obviously, the Blue Jays have done well. We've seen a bump last year. They did well again last season, expecting more. So this will continue. So there's lots of people that are impacted by Kitchener Minor Baseball. So the goals of our association, we're trying to provide Kitchener youth the ability to participate in sports at a reasonable cost. I know in every board meeting we have, keeping costs under control is a key factor, and I don't have the numbers of all the associations, but I know some of them. I believe we are one of the more economical sports that are in the city. We keep things as tight as we can. We focus more on just baseball development. We focus on the character of our players. Many of our teams do things such as food drives and things to enhance themselves as both players and also as people in the community. So we're very focused on that. And it's also community-based activity for kids and parents. There's lots of people out at the games, lots of people talking about the games. It's more than just dropping your kids off at baseball. This is a large community event that happens throughout the city. Every night, I'm sure you see kids out in the fields, so we're pretty proud of that. The Bright Up facility is one of our main facilities. It's the gem of our setup, and we've contributed to this over time. We've worked with the city on all of these initiatives to install benches around Bright Up 2 to honor long-term contributors to our association. We have improved the quality of the batting cages that are there, and also the fencing in the dugouts. The city has been wonderful to work with us to increase the quality of this facility over time. So that's been fantastic. We've had a great partnership for a very long time with the city. Just a quick chart of the participation rates. As you can see, it's been going up steadily since 2009, starting at 541 participants, up to 735 in 2015, and then with the Blue Jays bounce, as you can see it on this chart, it jumped significantly, and our registration numbers are polling a little bit higher from last year at this time as well, so we would anticipate another jump in 2017. I've always hoped to reach 1,000 participants, and it's starting to look like we may be able to achieve that. So that is a wonderful thing for us, but it also presents a series of issues with the availability of diamonds as is stated in this proposal. So what is the impact of increased participation? Unfortunately, we've actually had to be turning away players in our association. Kids that want to play baseball, because of the availability of space, we've had to turn some away, not a lot, not to a great degree to this point, but some. And I'm afraid that would become a larger problem as we go forward, so we certainly don't like that. Our rep teams, obviously these are high performance players. They need to practice. And for the last several seasons, we've had to tell our rep teams there's zero availability of diamonds within the city of Kitchener to practice during the season. I can't imagine telling that to our rep hockey teams or any other sport, saying you have no facilities in our city to do your practice. They can play games, but all practice has to happen outside of baseball diamonds or find an open field somewhere. So that's a little rough on a high quality program. The teams get creative and they try to find alternative places. There's more indoor facilities that are available, so they rent those, but that's, again, additional cost to our families, which we try to avoid. So there's lots of impacts to this participation. So the benefits of lighting up Bright Up, obviously additional diamond time, that's obvious. A big one is actually the proposal before us talks about having our house league teams play on this on the one Pee Wee Diamond at 5:30. That's an amazing experience for them. Typically the house league players play on B diamonds or B2 diamonds, and sometimes they'll even have fences in front of them. This is an opportunity for them to play on this diamond. Typically they get one opportunity a year or two at their big tournaments. Now they'll get an opportunity on a weekly basis, so that would be fantastic for them. It also keeps these parks active longer into the night. So while that can be a concern, there's people around, it also controls the types of activities that are actually happening in those parks at that time. It keeps the unwanted activities away. After dark in these large areas, you know, it's a gathering place. If we can keep the lights on and keep it organized, then there may be less unwanted activities in those areas. So some quick other notes in my last few seconds here. KNBA, we understand the concerns of people around unwanted activities and some of the behaviors that happen in any gathering. Baseball is not excluded from that. There's no drinking at our events, so there's a zero tolerance policy on that. Has it ever happened? Of course. I mean, there's parents in the back by the trees, and we're going to do our best to reinforce that that is not allowable. These are kids' events, so for no other reason that can't be tolerable. Excessive noise and rowdy behavior, absolutely not. We're trying to avoid that. We certainly don't want that to happen. Abiding by posted restrictions around smoking, proper parking on the streets, all these things that we support. Could we do a better job of making sure that our parents are aware that this is something that can't be tolerated? Yes, we will do that. And overall, KNBA is part of the community, and we want to work with our community, we want to work with our neighbors, and we're going to do that. So that's it for the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Ron, for that. The notes, your questions, the questions are all the questions, everyone queued in questions for the delegate? Okay. Councillor Fernandez.
Thanks, Ron, for coming in. And certainly, I've seen the growth escalate in the minor baseball, because we've got a couple of kids on our street who play for you. What is the top limit for age for your players in your organization? The oldest.
The oldest players are 18, some turning 19.
Okay.
So the top midget age group is that age.
Okay. So I can see where the concern for the neighborhood would be about the drinking and excessive rowdy behavior around that age group. Is that?
I believe that would be with the parents of the players that are playing. I don't think we're concerned with the players drinking. I hope that's not a concern.
Let's hope not. So what, I mean, you said you would love to see your participants reach 1,000. Is that what you see having extended time play do?
I believe it's going to jump to, it'll probably get near 1,000 this year. The extended time to play in the long run would have a positive impact on participation, because kids are getting turned away and they see an opportunity to play at these premium diamonds. Playing under the lights is cool. So I certainly see the lights having some beneficial impact on registration. I'm not sure how massive that would be, but it would be an additional nice things for kids to see, playing under the lights.
So you'd be actually able to have 2 games on an evening. So on a Monday night, you could have actually 2 full games playing, because you'd have the lit diamonds now.
That's correct. I believe the proposal is to starting at 5:30 on the smaller diamond for a house league game, and then having the rep game at 7:30, and then on the other diamond starting at 6 and the second game at 8 or 8:30 for the older kids. So
Okay.
2 games per night on those diamonds.
Would you see this as a revenue generator for your organization, being able to have more games play, or is it that's really a non-issue right now?
Maybe in the increased participation, we don't sell things at games, we don't have additional concessions, so I don't see it being a massive revenue generator other than greater interest in baseball.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron, for your presentation. So I'm the councillor that represents the residents surrounding this Bright Up Park. A couple questions for you. One is, what is your season? From when does it start and when does it end?
So the first games of our season start in May, beginning of May, and the season runs to Labor Day weekend is when actually that's the rep season ends. The house league season will end in around first couple weeks of July, and then just rep games after that. So those will go to about the first week in August, and then there's some year-end tournaments that happen after that. And there are some activities, some fall ball activities that happen in September and October as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we probably use those diamonds and those lights even up till the 6, 7 o'clock that time of the year, because it gets dark so early. So
Mhm.
that's another benefit also, is our later in the year be able to play in September and October to even 7 or 8 o'clock instead of right now we're pretty much out of there by 6:15 it gets dark.
And you mentioned that the club has been around for since the 50s, so do you have participation rates that date back into the last time the Blue Jays were, well, when they won the World Series in 92, 93? Do you have, I'd like to see what the ebbs and flows are of your participation over that time.
I don't have the numbers going back then. I do know from conversations with some folks that were there that there's definitely a bump whenever this happens.
Yeah. But does the bump, my question is, how does it, how dependent are the numbers on the success of the Blue Jays?
It certainly gives you a bump. I call it like the Olympic bump in any of those sports. It certainly gives you a bump. Our program is being built very strongly to keep the players that are registering now throughout their whole time. So if they register in rookie ball, which we're seeing massive registration in rookie ball and participation and everything to do with the young guys, we want to build a program that keeps them in there. So certainly if the Blue Jays start to go down, you can guess as much as I can exactly what negative impact that would have. But the ones that are coming in now, we are strongly working to make sure they retain within the program right through their years when they're midget ball and all the way through.
So you mentioned that when you're looking at your planning for after such time as the lights would go in at Bright Up, that you would not need the 4 games, so 2 per diamond per on any given night. You would not need all 4 for rep games. You would seek to use those, some for house league, some for rep.
The early game at the smaller diamond, Diamond 1, would be used for house league. The other 3 games would be rep games.
Okay.
In the current plan.
So I'm trying to understand, what are the parameters you have around timing for a rep game? I know house league might be more flexible in terms of being able to end earlier, I'm guessing. But if innings go late naturally, then how? Do you have a cutoff time or what?
A curfew is fairly typical for baseball games. In a tournament, you always have an hour and 45 minutes. So if there was a cutoff time for a game, so if we started at 7:30, target a 9:30 start with the lights turning off at 10, that's a normal event. So you could say the game would have to stop at no inning after 9:30 sort of deal. So it's fairly standard to have a curfew on a baseball game. That's not, especially with lights, it's fairly common.
Yeah, okay. So, sorry, the curfew is standardly an hour and 45 minutes, and that you can't start an inning after that?
It's different at different age levels, and it's different in tournaments than it is regular season.
Yeah.
So for some of our younger groups, there's a 2-hour time limit. Some are 2:15. I think the older guys don't have a time limit, but applying one to a game under the lights would be standard. It wouldn't,
that would work fine for your...
Work fine.
Okay. Because the residents, as you've heard, are really quite concerned about the existing situation extending, which includes a lot of noise and a lot of parked cars, they hear a lot of noise of the car doors slamming and people being loud at the end of a game. They're worried that will extend out to too much later than even your end time on their streets. So we'd be looking to KMBA to really work around those times to make sure that your end times are more within a reasonable time should this go forward. Is that something that you're willing to continue working with us on being reasonable for the residents?
Yeah, of course. We want to work with the community. So certainly, I believe there's a time of 10 p.m. for the smaller diamonds that's been put out there. We can work together. It has to be reasonable. We have to be able to get our games in, but certainly we understand that we don't want to disturb.
Thank you. I have one more question, if I may. So KMBA, my understanding is that you collaborate with the Waterloo Minor Baseball Association for some things. Do you do that for the rep teams and the house league, or
just house league?
Just house league. So, but can KMBA rent fields in Waterloo for games if you needed to, if there were diamonds that were available in the city of Waterloo rather than just the city of Kitchener?
I would believe it would be possible to do so. I know from experience that the city of Waterloo has a harder time with diamonds than even we do, so they rent diamonds from us rather than vice versa, more often than not. So they don't have a large supply of diamonds either.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Schneider.
Thank you, Chair Ioannidis. Ron, thank you so much for coming in, and thank you for what you and all your team do for youth in our community. I have a daughter that plays rep softball, and weekends we're away at tournaments, and we rent hotels, we go shopping, we buy food, we take in some of the attractions of that local area, and it's something that I would love to have happen here more. Big fan of sports tourism. Do you think these improvements will help your ability to host tournaments?
I would say yes, for sure. We've had people ask us, there's been tournaments of those diamonds obviously over the years, and I know there's been lots of parents that have come saying, well, how do you not have lights here? We could have more games. Scheduling is a big problem for a tournament. So having that extra chance for a game at night, clearly staying within the guidelines that we've already agreed to with the city around timing, would certainly be a benefit to that. Yes, absolutely.
And with, especially Bright Up, with the ability they have the nice picnic shelters in the other area of the park there, it would seem a natural for holding tournaments.
Yes, the tournaments we've held there, we've got rave reviews on the facility. People have come and said they're fantastic. You've got the 3 fields and the ability to use those for different purposes. So for a Pee Wee tournament, you can use the top diamond, and you can use the lower diamond for different things. So yeah, it's a nice facility, a beautiful facility, lots of access, and it's been great. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, thank you. Most of the issues have been addressed already, but the one issue I have of concern is parking. And I've been at the facility, the fields, and I know most people tend to park on Union Street. Do you encourage parking elsewhere, or is parking available, or what's been the past trend? Do they park at the Bright Up Community Center, because there's the parking lot where the pool is, then they can walk through the trail over to the pool, or do they also park on Oakwood and Ridgewood, which is budding streets, and do they have access through that? Is that how do you sort of direct them to park?
Yeah, I would say we haven't done a great job of directing them where to park. I think people have found their way, and they know the area. That the players that are there, the parents that are there, tend to know the area well, so they know where to park. I believe we probably should divert more to the Bright Up parking lot. That makes more sense to keep that, which would also help with the later at night that people would go there. So I would say KMBA would commit to communicating more clearly after working with the city on what makes sense for parking, to say these are areas we recommend. It is obviously a challenging area. The paths are there. There's some limitations on where you can park on that one driveway that goes through. And on Union Street, as far as where you park and the surrounding neighborhoods, there's challenges for sure. That's something we work with the city on to understand if there's things at Bright Up itself that can be done to expand parking. And we would certainly work with our folks to say, hey, this is later at night, let's start parking over here. I think if we started telling people, giving them suggestions of where to park, they would follow that. To this point, I don't think we've really done much of that. We've just left them to their own devices. So I believe they're totally happy to park at Bright Up. It's not that far at the community center.
We have no further questions, Ron. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Our next delegate, Evan Cancellaire. Welcome, Evan.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to speak on the issue of INS 17008. I have prepared a few words to voice an opposition to the lights at Bright Hawk Park on behalf of my neighborhood. While only a few of us were able to make it to take the time off work to make it here today, I represent a much larger community of residents that border Bright Hawk Park. I bring with me a petition with signatures from 44 of my neighbors whose houses border the park and will be deeply affected by the extended playing times that the lights represent. We are here today to ask you a firm no. I'd like to tell you a little bit about my own story. I do not yet live in this neighborhood, but instead bought my house a mere 4 weeks ago. It backs onto Bright Hawk Park. It was no easy decision to buy a home. In Kitchener today, every house is at a premium. It puts a lot of pressure on you to choose the right one. With aggressive bidding wars, it was truly an agonizing experience. When we purchased our home just 4 weeks ago, we were very conscious of the lack of lights at the baseball diamonds. Imagine my dismay when just a few weeks later, I discovered that lights were to be installed mere yards from my new house. Heading into a community meeting last Tuesday, my dismay became worse and worse as I heard from my new neighbors what a disturbance the baseball diamond was. It was recognized as an extreme disruption. I heard stories of blocked driveways, rowdy children, and drunken parents. Urination on cars was a common occurrence. But what stood out to me the worst was the noise. One citizen described the noise from the diamond as brutal, another unbearable. At the very least, everyone agreed there was a sliver of respite every evening when it got too dark to play. Now, the lights would take that away. I became dizzy with regret as I heard for the first time all the problems that the baseball diamond represented. I worked from home and was very concerned about the noise, and now that noise would continue, past 12 hours each day and into the night. I enjoy my peace and quiet after work, and now there would be none. I grappled with the fact that I may have made a mistake choosing my new home just 4 weeks ago. One thing was very clear at that community meeting: the lights were not okay. We also question if the growth charts presented in the report may be misleading when applied to the context of the diamonds at Bright Hawk Park. The baseball diamond type in question are A1 diamonds, clay-skinned. I question if simply eliminating scheduling inefficiencies solves this problem without lights. Referring to Figure 1 in 2014, using the current unlit infrastructure, higher than normal tournament bookings led to 6,119 hours at A1 diamonds. By that number, at least 630 hours of play, unlit, was still available in 2016. This shows a big gap in play that could be supported by the current A1 infrastructure. Mark stated that A1 and A2 diamonds were currently maximized. Looking at Figure 1, we can see that both types of diamonds have seen higher use in previous years. A2 diamond use has decreased since 2012. The report still states, quote, inclusion of Bright Hawk Park diamond lighting will address the short-term needs of the diamond users. This short-term solution is affecting the livelihood of so many residents surrounding the park. The report also states that the city needs to build 6 new diamonds by 2021 regardless. We don't think that it's fair to trade our community's well-being for a Band-Aid solution. At this point, there's nothing we can do about baseball during the day. The residents of this neighborhood have accepted it into their lives. But we do not accept baseball past 9 p.m. Many of us are early risers, and the noise will affect our sleep. Many of us have children, and the noise will affect their sleep. Others simply enjoy peace and quiet. Even with the current non-lit schedule, players, observers, and parents take until 10 p.m. to finally get into their cars and away. By that logic, a lit diamond means noise continues until 12 a.m. We as a neighborhood oppose the lights at Bright Hawk Park. We are not buyers speaking to a corporation. We are citizens of this community speaking to the city. We ask that you do not install lights and give us 1 ounce of peace in our evenings. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. We do have a question for you, but before I have the questions, do you have a copy of your petition that we can
Yes, sir.
see?
We have the originals here. We don't have a copy, but the originals, the signatures are here.
Okay. I don't know if someone can make a copy of that so that we could see that. Okay, but Councillor Marsh.
Thanks, Evan, for your very eloquent presentation, and I want to thank you and all the people who've come from the neighborhood to wait for so long to be able to hear about this issue. I can appreciate your perspective very much, and I was there at the meeting, as you know, and it was hard to see a new excited home buyer all of a sudden feel like, okay, my goodness, what have we done? I want to know from you, in your meeting with the residents, I'm assuming between that public meeting and now, did you meet with a group of residents?
Yes, and I've had the chance to go door to door collecting petition signatures and speak to many of my new neighbors.
Okay. So in your discussions then with your new neighbors, was there any discussion about finding a middle ground? Was there any discussion at all? Did you think about, okay, well, we know that there is a need for more baseball diamonds to be used. What if we found, an earlier end time, or what if we found ways to make sure that people don't park on our streets?
Yes, I discussed this with many residents at length. There was an almost unanimous agreement that the appropriate earlier end time would be 9 p.m. That seems to be people's limits. And at that point, why put in the lights? I did also speak with a lot of residents who do actually play baseball and are baseball fans. This may not be entirely accurate, but a few told me that they play at Rim Park, where half of the diamonds are unused. Now, these diamonds are gravel, not clay skinned, but we would ask, as an alternative, to convert some of these diamonds to the better type of diamond that's needed for competitive play.
Right. Yeah, and I can appreciate that request. I mean, we have zero jurisdiction over the diamonds in Waterloo. So,
right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that perhaps there are alternatives around here. It seems like you guys are saying that you need to build additional diamonds anyways, or more A1 and A2 diamonds are needed. Mm-hmm. Another kind of alternative that I heard a lot was, like maybe you have to disappoint a few teams, right? And they can't play it in A1 diamond. They'll need to play it in A2.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, I'm not very familiar with that, the needs, of House League versus REP, but my understanding, what I think is that REP does have certain minimum standards that they couldn't just go ahead and play on, stone dust.
Yeah, this stone dust is not appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. Well, regardless, I can appreciate what you're asking. So those are all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan. We have no further questions. Oh, we got one. Councillor Fernandez.
Yes, Evan, thank you. Can you identify not the number, but the street that you're planning on moving on? Is it Ridgeview or Oakwood or Fairfield?
It's actually Sunset. So it's a little court.
Oh, I see. Okay,
yeah.
Okay. And so your understanding is the diamond that will be directly behind you, it will be one of the ones that will be lit?
Both of them. There are two diamonds directly behind me, and they're both being proposed to be lit.
Okay. And even the understanding that the spillover lighting will not translate to the backyards?
Yes. I understand that, but the actual light is not my or really anybody else's concern. It's the noise and the disruption that those lights bring.
Okay. Is there any access from your street to those diamonds in terms of a trail?
There is a gate in my backyard. That's the access. There's no trail directly from my street to the park.
So people can't go park on your street and then walk through a trail connection?
It's so close that they do. They absolutely do that. It's not a trail. They just go around the corner. There's not a lot of space between. My understanding is that the streets are just absolutely lined with cars when baseball games are happening.
Okay. And you commented about driveways being blocked?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what I needed to.
Thanks, Evan. Our next delegate, Patty Moses. Welcome, Patty.
Good morning. I'd like to say thank you to the council members and the Honourable Mayor. I'm here today to speak on behalf of many of the residents of the Bright Up Bald area who would like to be here today, but most of them are working and or have other commitments. We had very little bit of time to prepare. My name is Patty Moses, and I live on Union Street, directly across from the Ball Diamond. I've been there 8 years, and I too bought a house thinking that there's no lights on the Ball Diamond, so that was one of my selling points. In the collection of these 44 signatures, I spent a couple of hours on Saturday and a couple hours on Sunday going door to door with some of my neighbors and spoke to many of the 44 people who signed these signatures. And as Evan has said, many of the residents, spoke about how much they like the games and how they can walk over and listen to a game, watch a game. They like that the park is well kept. It's definitely one of the most well kept, I think, parks in Kitchener, which is lovely, and that the park is used in the day. Many of the things that they asked me to present to you to be taken into consideration is, and some of them are similar to what Evan has mentioned, the noise levels of the game, including the yelling, the roar of the cheers, the chanting of the crowds in the bleachers. And these are some of the language that I heard from these people, so I've included it today. The loud and obnoxious use of obscenities and the constant pinging of the balls. The traffic, the cars blocking driveways and sightlines, disregard for private property, including littering and trespassing, people drinking alcohol and the lack of safety associated with that, and the concern that this will increase with nighttime games. Children and adults urinating not only between parked cars and boulevards, but in backyards of homes abutting the park. And both of the diamonds, especially the larger one, has bleachers that are right on people's property lines. Several people told me that they were quite upset about this and said they don't sit outside anymore because of the games. They now feel that if these games go into late into the night, they will never be able to safely or comfortably enjoy their own yards, and I don't think that's okay. The baseball leagues and organizers have identified that causing a disturbance is not permitted at these games. However, many residents have witnessed these disturbing activities, and they're just not prepared to allow them to happen until 11 o'clock at night, even 10:30. Historically, they told me, bylaw officials have not responded to their calls and complaints. And in reading the letter that was sent to us, the residents, from the City of Kitchener, it says, current use of the diamonds should be a good indication of the type and volume of noise associated with these ball games. So they're telling us that whatever's happening in the day is going to continue to happen until 11 o'clock, potentially at night. We all bought houses across from or adjacent to a sports park. We knew there would be noise, but we bought houses across or near to a sports park with no lights. And this is significant because right now during the season, whatever that time period is, on weekends often the games, practices, or tournaments start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they'll often run until 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. During the week, practices, tournaments, games also run until 8:30, 9 o'clock in the night. In my own experience, and what I've heard from residents, is that there's a collective sense of relief when the games are over and the crowds have dispersed. That process, though, can take up to an hour and be quite noisy and disturbing during that time. Right now, we have this little window of peace and quiet in our day when the games are done. We get to unwind, we get to sit in our own yards with the serenity of the beautiful park setting that we've paid premium prices for, and just relax. For myself and many of these 44 people who've signed the petitions, the thought of giving this window up of reprieve every night, or as one neighbor said, having it stolen from us, is literally unbearable. It is too much for us to imagine having all this going on until that late at night. We all understand that physical activity is good for children, and we all want what's best for children and their development, physically, mentally, emotionally, and socially. And we support activities, such as baseball, that offer those kinds of health and social benefits. But something else that's very good for child development is quiet and sleep. And our neighborhood children have the right to fall asleep in their own homes at a decent hour. That's a fundamental right that they have. And it's critical to their development and should not be sacrificed or put at risk for the sake of any kind of sport. My opinion is, I also feel like, what about the kids that are being scheduled to play these games until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night? I do not feel that this plan is in any child's best interest. There are a lot of reasons why this does not make sense. I've also spoken to 2 local licensed real estate agents who have told me very clearly fewer people look at homes across from lighted sports parks, meaning fewer people are bidding on our homes, meaning lower value market. Some of the neighbors of Woodside Park have shared with members of our delegation that the city has not been able to curb the nighttime noise. They have not been able to lessen the disturbance or provide them with the peace they have a right to. Some of the neighbors asked me to speak on behalf of the local wildlife. I've got 2 paragraphs left.
Okay.
And what that's going to do with the late night activity and the lights. And to finish off, I'd just like to say on behalf of the people that I've spoken to in our neighborhood, we feel that our peace, Our quiet, our sense of well-being and security within our homes is all being threatened by this proposal. And I would ask you, is that what you're prepared to vote for? Thank you.
Thank you. We do have a couple questions for you. Councillor Marsh.
Thank you, Patty, for your presentation. And clearly, this is a topic of great passion for you, and something that I think you make a lot of good points. I want to ask you: did you get a chance to read over the response from staff to all of the concerns that were heard at the public meeting last week? Staff emailed out a response to those concerns with suggested ways to mitigate those. Have you had a chance to look those over?
I glanced at them, yes.
Okay. So one of those, just to jog your memory, would be to look at a potential fence along Union Street, on the park side, to dissuade people who are coming to the park to use it to park on Union, so that the noise of the cars and the people coming to their cars, slamming doors, etc., would be moved to the Bright Up Park parking lot, the Bright Up Center parking lot. Is that something that you think could help alleviate some of your concerns?
No, I do not. I think if you're talking about a fence being on the Union side, then what you're saying is that everybody on Ridgewood, Oakville, Sunset, Fairfield would still be affected. So I'm not prepared to, have a buffer for myself while they're still all dealing with these concerns. Even if you're saying you're going to put a fence along the back of the ball diamonds, I don't see how that would work. There are bleachers that are right up to people's property lines. And I don't know that people in this neighborhood are interested in having fences put up. This is a wide open, beautiful park space. I think that's that's not a good solution.
Okay.
It's not conducive to a park setting to be putting fences up. So I don't see it as being a solution.
Okay. And so what about the idea of making the times tightened up so that, as a previous delegate said, that some residents said, 9 p.m. would be a more reasonable time. What if there was some negotiations to try to find an earlier end time? 11 o'clock is very late. So what about an earlier end time? What would be your response to that?
My response and the response of the people that I spoke to and that I'm here to represent today is 9 o'clock. It's late enough for us. We've listened to it and we're done. So 9 o'clock is a great time to stop.
I don't think 9 o'clock would allow for two. I know 9 o'clock would not allow for 2 games per night on each diamond. That's for sure.
And that's why we're opposed to this plan.
Okay, so do you see any opportunity to find some middle ground?
I'll be honest with you, at this point in terms of, we were given letters, we got letters a week ago Friday that there was a meeting on Monday night, which meant people scrambled, and a lot of people hadn't even seen it or read it or had a chance to make arrangements to come out to it. And then last Monday in the evening, we were told the meeting was today. We've had less than 1 week to prepare for this. So the best we could do in this last period of time, in this last week, was to go out and speak to the neighbors and say, what do you think about this proposal? And this is the information that we've been given and that I'm here to share with you today. If this gets voted through and we have room for negotiation, we'd have to have a whole new discussion. I can't speak on behalf of the neighbors. I'm not interested in a negotiation conversation. And I know that that's a hard position to take, but for all of these reasons and the information that Evan has shared, it's not a good idea for our neighborhood.
Okay, thank you very much for coming in.
Councillor Yaneski.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. You indicated you live across the street from the park. Does your driveway get blocked?
Yes, it does.
Okay. What would be your opinion if we took a position and banned parking on Union Street for the whole day?
Well, banning parking on Union Street would be a very small solution to the problem because all of the other concerns that I've shared with you today would still be present. We'd still have people, and I've had people on Oak Ridge Oakville, I believe it is, and Ridgewood that come into the park who were very concerned about the parking and the later night exodus, if you will. So unless you're talking about banning, because I'm really am here for all of the people I spoke to. So I'm not looking for a solution for me. I'm looking for a solution for my neighborhood.
Okay, so if I can expand that, so let's ban parking on Union, Ridgewood, Oakwood, and Fairfield.
Again, that's something that I would need to take back to people. We're still going to hear the noise. We're still going to have, people urinating in our backyards or on our boulevards. We're still going to have a sense of, there's just no quiet until the games stop.
Okay.
So
regarding noise, just to deal with that, is the noise after the game, people are just hanging around their cars for another half hour or hour and talking about the game and laughing and whatever? Or is the noise generated from the game, like somebody hits a home run and everybody cheers? Is that like
it's both.
Is that the noise could be cheers? I don't know, but it's still noise. I think in the end, is that?
So I live across the street from the park. And so I think that a lot of the noise, because most of the bleachers are facing back toward Ridgewood, Sunset. So even though I'm on the side of the park, I can be in my backyard and I feel like I'm sitting in the park. I hear it all day long on a Saturday. I hear it all evening long. So, the noise of the game carries not just over to where I live on Union, but it carries all through to the back of the homes that are abutting the park. So there is that noise. If you're going to tell me that at 10:30 at night somebody hits a home run, that we're not going to hear that loud roaring cheer, that's going to happen. And then when the game is over, as you asked, we also then deal with the people coming back to their cars. Sometimes they're jubilant because they've won. Sometimes they're angry because they've lost and they think the ump made a bad call. I mean, I've heard all kinds of different conversations. They'll just have conversations about their lives, standing at their cars on the boulevard, because Union is very busy and, quite frankly, a very fast street. So they're on the boulevard. They're at the end of people's property, or they're not just on Union, but on the other streets as well. So we hear all of that noise.
Okay. And my final question is, you mentioned that with the cars parked there, I'm looking at the photograph, and I've been at the park, but it's been a while since I've been there. People, when they're parking and they're urinating, is that basically between the cars on the street, or do they go into the bushes, or
both? So it was interesting because I had witnessed this myself. I've seen over the last couple of years, I've noticed I have a front garden and I'm out there at times and I'll see kids run across the street. They'll open up, the parent will come, they'll open up two doors and the child will stand and urinate between the car doors, or the kids will just come over and urinate between the cars. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've said to a couple kids, this is not a bathroom. There are bathrooms at the park, and I've been told a few choice words before, but I have to pick your battles, right? So when we went to the meeting on Monday night, and another neighbor mentioned the exact same thing, I said, oh, okay, so this happens more often than what I'm seeing. Then when I went out canvassing for signatures, people were telling me who live on Ridgewood, whose yards are right there, that people walk right up into their yards and urinate. And or they stand at the end, and one woman said to me, we were sitting out having a barbecue, and this guy came over and he urinated, and that wasn't the word she used, but at the back of our property, and we were looking at him, and he looked at us and said, what are you looking at? So people, this is a woman who said to me, I don't feel safe sitting in my own yard. If I'm going to be confronted by someone who's clearly breaking a bylaw and a social norm, then, what do we have to put up with?
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Mayor Urbanovic?
Thank you, and thank you very much for coming in today and sharing some of your concerns with us. Earlier on, when you were talking, it seemed like the lighting was perhaps the lesser of your concerns, and in fact, it's a lot of the behavioral issues that are the main concern. Did I understand that correctly?
Well, the concerns will only happen if we have lights. So if you put the lights in, the concerns will be there. So the lights are a concern. I know that Evan said, it's not really the lights that are going to be a bother to us, but if you put the lights in, all of these other things are going to run right through the evening. Does that answer your question?
To a certain degree. I guess I'm trying to... I guess what I'm getting at is, do you see a scenario where we can address some of these behavioral issues where they can be resolved through various mitigations and so on, and particularly if the light is the lesser of the concerns, the rest of it, if it can be addressed, shouldn't become a concern then?
In theory, that makes sense, but I and the other people that I spoke to are not confident that those things can be mitigated. There were people who said we don't want the lights, and those were people who did not go to the meeting, who didn't hear from the city folks and Mark, who talked about the design of the lights and how they're supposed to just go down so they're not going to shine out.
Right.
But we also heard that doesn't mean that if I'm sitting in my house that I'm not going to see that light right there. And it may not shine into my house, but I can still see it, and it's still going to be an issue. So I don't think that the lights are not a problem, but I think the fact of putting in the lights is a moot problem, because if you put in the lights, then we have all these other problems.
Right, and that's really the bigger concern.
Sorry?
And that's really the bigger concern for all of you. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Moses. That's all the questions we have for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we just maybe have it shared with us what the next steps are? Because
we can, what the next steps are right now, you mean? So right now, committee's gonna ask questions to staff, and once those questions are staff, if there's any motions or amendments or anything else that's going to be put forward, we will deal with those, or if not, we will deal with what the staff is proposing.
Thank you.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. I have some questions of staff. First of all, we've heard that there are many existing issues. Urinating in front of people's homes or on people's lawns doesn't sound like that's what anybody would want, and it's certainly not even within, it's not allowed. So I'm just wondering, what can we do right away to make sure that that is no longer going to happen?
Ms. McMulder, I'm going to keep you two on because I think you two are the ones who are going to be addressing a lot of the questions. Okay.
So through you, Chair, Kim Kugler may also come address some questions. But I think coming out of that meeting with residents, it was very apparent that there are existing concerns with the park and concerns that staff were not aware of. We, in terms of looking at the Bright Up Park, we did go back to look to see what complaints we had received, and they were very little. So in terms of addressing the concerns, and we've documented and we want to work with the residents, it's a multi-pronged approach. There are some concerns that we can address through maintenance, through additional porta potties, for example, specifically around the urination issues. There are concerns related to working with, and Kim can speak to this, the Ball Association and their code of conduct and enforcement. There are concerns that we can work with our bylaw enforcement folks around. And then we also believe that there are creative solutions to concerns. Something that comes to mind is parking and looking at specific parking solutions. So I don't want to suggest we can solve everything, but we are absolutely committed to working with the residents to look at finding solutions, because we were concerned with the amount of issues being experienced.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Have we looked at other options, that include potentially refitting existing ball diamonds that would, that we could, add a clay surface to, so that would be further away from residential areas and not impact this diamond area?
Through the chair, the issue is all fields are maximized, so if we push this issue onto other fields, that defers their problem somewhere else. So it just continues to push it down the line. It doesn't quite solve the problem, it just moves it to a different location.
Can you help me understand something? In your presentation earlier, it was indicated that there's one additional diamond being that equivalent of one additional diamond would be the result of adding lights to two diamonds. So help me understand why are we looking at one instead of two? Or why are you saying it's one additional diamond instead of two?
Lighting an existing field nets us about half of a diamond worth of inventory. We just the hours gained with additional lights.
Okay, just the way you calculate the number of hours of playtime?
That's right.
Okay. And now, I'm really concerned with the with the amount of complaints that we're hearing already, but also I'm concerned about what we're hearing including this petition. So, could we defer the decision on what would be the impact of deferring the decision about the Bright Up Park lights until we can discuss further in more detail with the residents potential ways of mitigating their concerns?
Through the chair, if I'm understanding the question, what would the deferral impact the project schedule, or how would it impact the project itself? We still aim for 2018 lighting to have it open for the 2018 season. It wouldn't impact the end result. Okay. I think this is very important to resolve before we enter the project anyway.
Ms. McGoldrick?
Yeah, through you, Chair. In terms of the Bright Up Park decision, we do have some flexibility in terms of the timing. I would respectfully request that Council also look at the Upper Canada Park, because that design is more complex, and we would need to, there's more restrictions in terms of the timeline in order to move those forward. So there is more flexibility in terms of the Bright Up Park decision.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so at the appropriate time, I want to move the deferral of the Bright Up Park, item number 2, within this report.
Okay. I will take that deferral after I hear the remaining questions. Councillor Fernandez.
So, of course, I'm going to focus a little bit on Upper Canada Park, being as it's something that's in my ward, and with no disrespect to the people from the Bright Up area, I think we've really heard your concerns. The addition or the revamping of the 4 diamonds at Bright Up Park, at Upper Canada Park, will increase revenue what percentage?
We're looking to increase the time by 2.5 times factor. How that impacts the revenue overall depends on the user fees, but overall we're looking at about a 2.5 times factor to increase the usage of Upper Canada.
So we'll be able to have possibly more tournaments at those diamonds. We'll be able to have an opportunity for longer play maybe in the summer hours. Is that what you're hoping?
That's the goal of the project, correct.
Okay. And the timing for the lights, I know you're going to be putting in the bare bones, so to speak. Do we have a sense of when the lights would happen?
We don't have a sense, and that's the second part of the study that we need to do. Maybe Kim can speak to that a little bit, but we will plan for recognizing it should happen soon.
Okay. Kim?
Okay, thank you. Councillor Yannette. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you... All right, please click back in. Go ahead.
Perfect, thank you. So the lighting of Upper Canada, so there's two parts in this I think that's really important to understand, is that the user groups that are at Upper Canada are softball, and the growth of that will dictate the addition of the lighting there. The lighting that's being added at Bright Up is to deal with the minor ball play of Kitchener Minor Ball, which is played on the clay fields. So the lighting will be part of our next study to see how fast we need to bring those on, and then to also look at funding. And that is the work that we're going to be doing once we get the immediate need dealt with. We'll be working on that as soon as those pieces are implemented and come back with another report as part of the next capital projects.
Okay, and I mean, I knew that, but it's probably good for the rest of council to hear what that is. If by some chance the lights are turned down at Bright Up, are there other locations, other diamonds that we would consider lighting? Not talking about Upper Canada, but are there other diamonds in the city that would be ready for lighting?
Through the chair, in time, we're looking to light all of our major facilities. We'd have to look at what the immediacy or what the how ready other parks are, but our current analysis says, Appendix C in the report identifies what those diamonds are.
Okay, yes. So you've identified the ones in Appendix C that we would be able to light sooner than later. Is that in hopes of filling that gap for the hardball?
So what we're trying to do is that we know that we're going to have a need for 6 diamonds within the next 5 years. And right now we have an immediate need for 1.5 diamonds. We will be looking at lighting other fields as well that are within the softball mix of fields, in addition to also bringing forward recommendations for new diamonds if that's also what we need. But we're trying to be cost effective, looking at what properties we have and what we can actually develop. We don't have a lot of places to build new diamonds, so we really need to look at lighting our existing infrastructure and basing that on the demand use. And right now, Kitchener Minor Baseball is the highest use, and that's the group that we're trying to resolve. Upper Canada will help us grow with softball and make some pieces there, and then as they need more, we'll be looking at lighting some of that other inventory that's on that Appendix C.
And sorry, I was referring to opportunities for hardball play, not softball play. And looking at this, the hardball play needs the clay only, right? The clay skinned. Are there any diamonds on this list, say for example Wilson Park, that we would be able to transfer to a clay skinned diamond and have that lit instead of the Bright Up Park?
So in order to do that, we would displace the users that are currently there and have to find them another field or build them something.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Yaneski?
In regard to parking, do the players and the parents that come to these parks, does anybody park at the community center just behind there? Is that just a handful, or should you encourage more to come there? Or is that maybe to address some of the issues of parking?
So through you, Chair, right now, honestly, until we went to that meeting, we were unaware of some of the concerns that were raised at Tuesday's meeting. What we are doing is that we will do some studies to find out where people are parking and how they're parking. Now that it's on the radar, we've got an opportunity to do that. We do know that people were using Bright Up Center, but given the proximity to Union Street, it was much easier for people to likely access from some of those other entrances. As Ron alluded to, now that it's been brought to the attention of Kitchener Minor Baseball, they also will work with their parents to talk about where to park. We can put together a communication strategy. They already have a conduct of behavior in their policies that they will now reiterate again with the families that are utilizing their sport. So I think that we can work towards mitigating some of those items that have come to the forefront through this discussion.
Okay, and I appreciate that answer. Next question I have is regarding washroom facilities. I don't recall any washroom facilities at the park. Where does one go if you need to go?
Through you, Chair. There is, I believe, one porta potty located within the park, and then when the Bride Up Center is open, players can also utilize the Bride Up Center for washroom facilities. So again, we heard about the urination problem at the open house. So we need to evaluate whether the porta potty, if we should be adding more, and it sounds like there's a need, as well as the placement of where they're located as players leave the field at the end of the game. That's perhaps when they're using the washroom facilities. So we do need to understand what specifically the needs are around washroom facilities.
Okay, I appreciate that. So with the community center, that's an option. But you say it's when it's open. What are the hours of the community center, and whether they complement the ball diamond use, or are they closed? And when the players come, that's when they need it. Then you can't get in.
So currently, the hours of the operation of the Bride Up Center does complement the use of the fields, and we have reached out to the community center that if there is lighting at Bride Up Park, there might be a need to extend the hours a half an hour.
So what are the hours of the community center that they're open?
They're open now until 9:30, and then if there's events, they'll stay open till 10 or later, depending on what's programmed. We just need to do notification with them.
And what about weekends?
Weekends is based on the activity. Right now, I believe, I can double check my email. So I believe the weekends was 9 o'clock, but I will confirm that.
So community center could be open on weekends or not? Is that what you're saying?
They are open now on weekends, but they would extend their hours if there was a programming need.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Gazzola.
Yeah, my first question I had down was, are there any other locations in the city that we could use to sort of share with this issue? I counted on the list here. There are 16 A diamonds that don't have lights. Are those 16 other possibilities, or? I haven't heard a definite answer on sharing these problems around the city. Like, what about, are these category on Appendix C, are they all A1s, or are some of them A2s, or are there B1, B2s that can be converted? Are there other opportunities?
So through you, Chair, we are seeing demand both in the hardball and in the softball. We are looking at, as Mark mentioned, a long-term lighting strategy for all of our fields, because we know it's the most cost-effective way to utilize existing lands in terms of meeting some of the ball demands. However, if you look at Appendix C, you'll see that of the current unlit fields, they're all stone dust, which means that they're not appropriate for hardball, and we're seeing the greatest need at this moment in the hardball area. So from a hardball perspective, there are no other options at this point in time. If we were to convert stone dust fields, we would be displacing softball users, which also are seeing an increase in demand.
Yeah, but these are the questions I was interested in. You know, can we change some of these fields? Can some of the B fields that aren't on here, you know, there seems to me, I'm not arguing about, I have no arguments with Kitchener Minor Baseball or the neighborhood. It's a picking up sport, and it's going to pick up more and more with the weathers that we're having. So I just wonder if we really have done our job on that inventory of where can we go. Are there places we can share this? But that's fine. I run out of time here. My other question, next question is, when did this hit our capital forecast to do the lights at Bright Up? Has that been in the capital forecast for some time, or is it new, or?
So through the chair, we're using our annual capital forecast, our annual capital funding for this project. This is just where we recommend allocating that towards.
So were we aware that was in the plans for this year and next year? We're not aware of that? So we're not aware of it, the public aren't aware of it.
So through you, Chair, the proposal to fund both the Upper Canada Park and the Bright Up Park lighting, as Mark mentioned, is through the District Park Development General Provision. It wasn't until, and truly, the pause on the Upper Canada Park and the demands we were seeing in terms of bookings of diamond use really coincided at the right time to evaluate all of the user needs. So that pause was an opportunity to look at growth, look at needs, and look at what the options are, and that's what we have been doing. So
okay,
that was not in the capital plan.
You're using my time. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's really just come to the forefront recently, and I don't know that we've done an complete overall picture. Just a couple of other questions. If we put in, this is to do with lights. If we put in lights, our costs will increase, right? Because we're going to have to pay for more hydro. Yes, no?
There would be cost to the city for the use of lights?
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
there would be.
Yeah, and will those costs be passed on to the users so that the city will break even?
Those costs would be part of sports field user evaluation. I'm not sure that it's 100% recovered because it would be the impact of building a new diamond versus lighting, which will create some operating efficiencies for city staff in a number of locations to actually maintain. So those numbers, I'm not sure that it's a break even, but it would be a better position than building new and maintaining additional fields.
Okay, but is there any reason why it shouldn't be break even proposal when we get to that point? I'm notwithstanding the capital cost that's involved. Okay, that's for another day. I'll leave that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Verbanovic.
Thank you. I have one question, and then I think we need to also deal with where we are on the agenda and time frame. So my question is just in terms of moving forward, if we weren't to move forward specifically with the ones at Bright Up right now, what other options do we have, and at what cost? Do we have any at all right now?
At this time, we don't have an immediate option. We know that it will be looking at additional lands and looking to see where we can build the infrastructure.
So that's a much longer term solution. Okay, thank you. And then, Mr. Chair, we just need to collectively remind ourselves we're now at a 1:15. We have a whole number of delegations coming at 2:00, and we have one delegation for fire. So I think I'm going to come over and see you, but I think we're going to have to look at how to break this up over the balance of the afternoon. Well, I think they've all been waiting, and there's a delegation here.
Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We do have one volunteer member of the project team that helped develop the fire master plan that I would suggest if you're going to defer it, you would want to hear from him today. Certainly, it's within council's purview to defer. There is no time sensitivity to it. Administration did defer it from last committee cycle, so I have no doubt that the fire management team will want me to tell you that it must be taken at the next committee cycle, but there is no time sensitivity.
Go ahead, Councillor Gazzola.
No, I appreciate, and I kept looking up at the firefighters, and I feel for them. They've had a learning experience here. But could something like this be dealt with on March the 20th? We have an afternoon open before the council meeting? Could that not be? That's a humongous document coming from the fire department, and we need to devote time to it. It's an excellent document, amazing the amount of information. You can't deal with that in a half an hour, not even an hour. There's a lot there, and we're looking to a lot of things in the future. So if we could deal with it on March the 20th, I don't know what's on the agenda for the strategy meeting, but if it could be dealt with then, it then could keep flowing along. But
Okay, we're looking at those answers. I think you made a good suggestion. Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair, March 20th won't work for the fire management team, so I'd suggest deferral till the April 3rd committee cycle.
Okay. All right. We'll deal with that when it comes. Let's finish this item up. And, Ms. Fletcher?
So through the chair, I think we have heard a recommendation for a deferral of the recommendation number 2. Staff can support a deferral with more information to come back on March 20th. And so I think you heard staff requesting council to consider the first part of the recommendation today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was just about to say that. I was going to plan on taking on the deferral instead. No more questions to be asked, because it seems to be that there's more answers that need to be addressed with the neighborhood, and I keep seeing more questions popping up, and I don't think we're going to finish this item in a timely manner. So with that, I will take the deferral. All those in favor of the deferral? For the deferral? It's okay. Okay, so we're voting on the deferral. Just item 1, correct? Item 2, which is the Bright Up Park portion. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. So that item's been deferred till our next committee meeting, which is April. What is this? 4th? Is that the right date? Yeah. Well, Ms. Fletcher has a suggestion, a date?
Through the chair, I think our understanding was there's 2 weeks between now and when the recommendation would have been ratified at council. If we can accomplish some things between now and March 20th, the recommendation could be reconsidered. If not, it could be pushed off to April.
Okay. Is that acceptable to you, Councillor Marsh? Okay. All right. So you residents understand, the other residents understand that this is being deferred to our council meeting, which is in 2 weeks. So that gives time and your councillor to deal with the issues that you have raised today, and we'll move forward with that whatever the recommendation is at that time.
At the same time?
No, that will be in the evening. That will be in the evening or right before. It'll be in the evening, but at what time would it be? 7 o'clock. So, it would be at 7 o'clock. I was thinking it was special. Okay. So with that, okay. So we have comments on item number, on the items. Councillor Schneider, do you have any comments? Okay. Okay, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I had questions as well, but I'm happy to let staff figure it out in terms of the lighting. Just on that very briefly, just since we're here, I do think that there are some, I do think there is a possibility for some meeting in the middle, and the one question I would put to staff, not to get a response on, but is there an ability to ensure that at the later evening schedulings that we do have the established, reputable groups booking that do have policies, and in that policy, can we address noise issues as well, because it could be sort of a privilege type situation where if they don't adhere to noise policies, perhaps in subsequent seasons they do lose those field hours. That's the challenging side. The other side of this that I want to speak to is the Upper Canada Park. I was very concerned midway through this process because there was some cost overruns, and I am really happy with where we are now because staff found a way to make the diamonds so they're much more attractive and usable for everyone. And I'm fully in support of the work that they've done here, especially because they did come in within budget on that. I'd even say that when it comes to meeting the needs of the ball players in the area, they've definitely hit it out of the park on this one, so kudos to them. So happy to support that, and I look forward to finding some common ground and resolutions on the Bright Up Park. It is going to be a challenge, but I think those challenges can be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Verbanovic?
Well, that was from before. I'm just happy to support this as well. I think it's come a long way, and I think the work that will be done there will certainly add the necessary amenities for the sport down at Upper Canada, with future opportunity to do additional improvements. And I think we do need to work very closely with the Bright Up neighborhood, because I am sympathetic to their concerns. I think we need to be able to demonstrate our commitment to addressing them, but also look at solutions that might involve that facility.
Councillor Marsh?
Yeah, the residents who are still remaining here, it's been brought to my attention that there's no easy way to get to all the people who are living in the area other than another drop, like door-to-door drop. And if we had, because of March break and because, I'd like to move that we just voted on the deferral, I know, to March 20th, but I think a deferral to April 3rd would give a bit more breathing space to actually really have a time to try and come to some workable solutions. So I'm just wondering if there's a procedural way for us to defer it to April 3rd instead of March 20th.
If I could ask a question, Councillor Marsh.
Councillor Davey?
Sorry, just a question, Councillor Marsh. Just because I do still see these somewhat tied, can I just make the suggestion that if, and I'm not sure if we can do this in advance, but if you are not satisfied as you are the ward councillor, I would more than happily support a deferral again at council, but I would leave the option open to deal with it at council, and then I'm leaving it up to you, but just my 2 cents.
What would be the benefit of that if I already know that we want to defer it to April 3rd? I think the risk there is that then we're dragging residents out who are maybe worried who are going to be delegates again,
Councillor
right?
Marsh, I just want to ask, is April 3rd acceptable? Okay. I will take the motion that was as if the date was April 3rd. Is everyone agreeable with that?
Just show
Put up
hands.
their hands.
April 3rd.
Is that okay, Colin?
Sorry, Colin.
Or do you want to take another vote? Motion to reconsider? Do we need to do all that?
Through the chair, technically speaking, a motion to reconsider would be required.
Okay. We'll
However,
have a motion to reconsider. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. And now the new date is April 3rd, we said? April 3rd, all those in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, Councillor Fernandez.
Just quickly, I would like to ask for a recorded vote on the paragraph 1 related to the Upper Canada Park. And I just want to make sure that anything that happens with relation to the Bright Up Park does not delay what's happening at Upper Canada Park. Is that correct? Okay, that's correct. Good.
Okay, and I will just say I think staff did come to us and did have a plan that they thought that was appeasable to, I think, to many of us here that would see baseball move forward. No one kind of predicted that. This is kind of the Blue Jays. They're the reasons why we're sort of in this pickle, so I think we should ask them for additional dollars. But anyways, I think staff did a good job with that, and so we'll move on to the next item with the delegation and the fire master plan. Oh, yeah, sorry, after this vote. And it's a recorded vote. All that's been carried unanimously. Thank you. Okay, so we will deal with item number 6 with the delegation who's here to speak. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity to allow me to provide some feedback as a community representative on the Fire Master Plan project team. First of all, let me say it was a privilege to be a member of this team. I was pleased that the Kitchener Fire Department was willing to look outside of their organization and include community stakeholders in this endeavor. I was also pleased that throughout the project, feedback from external stakeholders was not only respected but encouraged. The chief and his leadership team wanted to know what we thought, and they were receptive to any ideas or improvements that might be identified as we took a deep dive into their processes. They were extremely welcoming to the community members, which led to a collaborative effort in bringing this plan together. As a member of the project team, I was privy to the materials and discussions as the data was collected by the many stakeholders and analyzed to create the master plan. I also attended and participated in the workshop in September led by retired Chiefs Hancock and Allen. As we progressed through the analytics phase of this project, it was reassuring to me as a taxpayer to witness a culture of continuous improvement at the fire department. It was clear that the leadership team is committed to finding internal efficiencies in order to deliver their services as cost effectively as possible. Even though the services they provide are critical to our community and of a nature I believe all taxpayers would support, I was still encouraged by how engaged they were in finding internal cost savings to their plan. This speaks well to the culture that the senior leadership team has cultivated within their department. I was glad to be part of this team as I gained personal insight into how the fire department operates and provides a valued service to our community. I believe that the Kitchener Fire Department is well positioned to tackle any challenges coming their way. From what I observed, they have a strong leadership team which focuses on delivering a high level of service while promoting fiscal responsibility, continuous improvement, and strategic planning and execution. From my citizens' perspective, I believe the community is well served by this organization, and I look forward to the benefits that will materialize as a result of this master plan coming together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Mayor Urbanovic?
Well, not a question. I just wanted to thank you for, I know an inordinate amount of time went into the development of this master plan by our staff team, but as well as additional folks such as yourself. And I just wanted to thank you for your commitment to the city in that regard.
Thanks. It was a privilege.
Councillor Fernandez?
And I apologize. Did I not get your name? Was I not paying attention? Are you Pete Lennox?
Pete Lennox, yes.
Pete Lennox. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to be here today, and I'm sure you had an education listening to all the other stuff that you got to listen to.
It was an education, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lennox. So we have Mayor Urbanovic. Are you going to move the deferral?
Well, I just wanted to ask Chief Rehill, I mean, because I'm looking at the balance of the afternoon, I am thinking that the appeals should not take us 3 hours. Should not is the operative word. I guess my question. Okay. You'd rather come back?
We think it's going to be longer than 3 hours.
Okay. So then, with that, I will move it to April 3rd, and let's put it first on the agenda. Then on the 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did look sharp. Okay, so let's.
You can come cash next time.
Okay, so
thank you, everybody.
Can we all vote on that, please? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. And that concludes the first part of our Community Infrastructure Service Committee for March 6, 2017.